In the year 2035, the virtual reality game Warlord VR changed the whole world. Jian was one of those who, through this game, dreamed of changing his life. He dedicated his life to this game, but what he received in return was betrayal. He was betrayed by his friends. This betrayal took everything from him, but it also gave him something else, a chance to start everything again. He had the chance. From now on, he would not belong to anyone. He would not play with others, no matter what the result was. He would prove that it was possible to win even alone. While the rest would share the prize of victory among themselves, Cheyenne used to roll dice to divide it, but ended up eating all the loot alone. Starting from here, the story of Hui Cheyenne's solo game life begins. The game starts inside the Valabri forest, which appeared peaceful from the outside and seemed brightly lit, but inside, in a certain portion, a wounded man was seen. He was clearly tired, and his breathing was fast. There was weariness and injuries marked on his face. The condition was very serious because he was surrounded by a group of fighters and many dead bodies were lying on the ground, showing that a fierce fight had taken place. The leader of the enemy group was tense, waiting for someone who had not yet arrived. One of his subordinates asked him what to do next. The boss, cold and strict, ordered in a harsh tone to kill the man immediately. Then a powerful fighter stepped forward and launched a fierce attack on the wounded man. At the critical moment, the injured man managed to save himself. He was terrified of what was going to happen next. Suddenly, a young boy rushed in, arriving exactly on time. Stepping between the attack, he saved the man from dying. With one strike, he threw the attacker away. The injured man's companions heaved a sigh of relief, and Jian called the boy by his name, thanking him for his component placement, timely arrival, and rescue. The fighters on the enemy's side started shouting. Hargan was ready to attack. Seven Jun moved to suppress him, but Jian proved far more powerful with his sword. With great speed and agility, he launched a swift counterattack and defeated them one by one. Because of this, the enemies fell to the ground completely while Chan stood tall. Smiling confidently, he said, "All of you attack me together. Even then nothing will change. You guys will defeat me." Then it was revealed that his real name was Han Jian, and his title was Hero the Slayer. Seeing this, Cheyenne's companions were filled with regret. The companions began to apologize to Jun. They admitted that they had dragged him into such a dangerous fight. They confessed that they had no hope, and while it was expected that the enemy might set a trap, Jun's apology was rejected. Jun, who had lost faith, assured them it wasn't their fault. Then he extended his hand toward their leader. The leader was surprised, looking at Jun very impressed by his simple gesture. Those standing around them became more emotional. The rest of the group also expressed their feelings emotionally. The name of Jun was repeated several times, and the deeds he had done were gratefully acknowledged. However, Jun insisted again that it wasn't his fault. He further explained that the real problem was someone else, someone who, due to their lack of skill, always arrived late. Jun was clearly pointing towards Shri. Then, turning towards Shri with a mocking smile, Jun asked, "Are you with me? Do you agree with Mr. Jun?" Shri began making fun of her friends, and then herself, in a mocking tone. She said that no matter how many weaklings come together, it wouldn't make any difference in the end. Soon, the true identity of Shri was revealed. Her full name was Chai Sealin, and she was a member of a group called Thunder Hunters, carrying the title Thunder Queen. Jun mocked her again, saying that she was always angry, attacking without thinking, and repeatedly losing to the people she loved. Shri considered these words trash and, filled with anger, warned Jun not to jump too much, otherwise he would regret it. But Jun only laughed. With a casual motion, he pulled out a mysterious object and sarcastically asked, "Regret? Seriously?" It was clear he had no fear at that moment. Jun activated the first slot, causing a tremendous change in his appearance. A powerful and unique battle outfit appeared on him after the transformation. With a confident smile, he said to Shri, "Only weak people like you regret." Feeling Jun's provocation, Shri's anger increased. She shouted and gave an order to her group, "Agent Pastor," and commanded them to immediately finish Jun. But Jun stood there, unbothered, with a challenging smile, saying clearly, "No matter how much you try, you'll never get me. You will be able to hit me, but only on Jian's face." Suddenly, a shock ran through Jun, something he hadn't expected. He was stomped hard from behind. Standing there, behind him were the comrades he trusted the most. At the next moment, his screen began flashing warning signals, indicating that his health points were falling fast and his movements were now restricted. Jin was in total disbelief. He asked with difficulty, "How can one of my companions do this?" Sadness filled his voice. One of the companions apologized and admitted, "Yes, I betrayed you." The group leader, too, betrayed him. The traitor explained the reason. He needed money. He then requested Jun to understand and assured him that he didn't hate him. Jun was filled with anger and disbelief. He couldn't comprehend how the people he loved the most, those he considered close friends, could betray him like this. At that very moment, Shri appeared. Laughing cruelly as if it was all just entertainment, Shri made fun of Jun, taunting him about his belief in the fake friendship he had with his teammates. She mocked the bond he insisted was real, declaring that such emotions had no meaning when it came to money. Then she moved closer to him and said that now she would make sure he would be out of the game permanently. Continuing the insult, Shri said that if she kept hitting him like this every time he logged in and took even one step in the game, she would remind him that in real life he was a worthless nobody, that the game was his real world. Then, with a mocking smile, she added, "Now you have become the same pathetic person again." Unable to tolerate the insult any longer, Jun burst out in anger and jumped to attack her, shouting, "Shut up!" But his attack went in vain. He was easily knocked down, and his blood spilled on the ground. As everyone stood around him, Jun, filled with anger and deep pain, thanked them all with his last breath. He cried out, "I did this for you guys. Why did you cheat on me even though I trusted you?" One of his old comrades shouted at him in reply, "Now die." He further explained that they'd been given hundreds of millions to kill him. After getting so much money, what else could they do? For them, it was all just a great hobby, causing so much trouble and betrayal just for the sake of money. They even reminded Jun how he once said they were all like a family. And now, that very family had betrayed him. But now, there was no expression of remorse on their faces. Soyeon was smiling on the screen as the word dead flashed repeatedly. Then the game restarted and gave the official message that Jun was dead, informing him that now he could not log in for 48 hours. The death penalty had opened, and those who died would temporarily lose their eyesight inside the game. Now back in the real world, Jun was completely drained and physically exhausted from the trauma he had just experienced inside the game. At that very moment, he was completely broken, suffering deeply, and drowning in sorrow. He admitted to himself, "I have lost everything in the game world." Information appeared on the screen, stating that this was one of the world's most popular and successful games. Later, a livestream clip played where players were fighting a powerful red dragon while viewers screamed with excitement. This game was built on advanced virtual reality technology and generated an unimaginable amount of money. That game was the only thing Jun was good at, the only thing he had ever succeeded at. In real life, he was always considered worthless, trash even. He recalled the past when he first showed his exceptional skills in the game. An impressed player had come to him, shocked by his abilities, and asked, "What is your level?" Jun had smiled proudly at that time. He was offered a team up, and at that moment, for the first time, Jun felt a sense of belonging. Now, remembering all of it, what had happened to him, for a moment he thought he would forgive those who had betrayed him. But within seconds, a wave of intense anger passed through him. Rage ran inside him and completely changed his decision. Jun decided that he would find them all and take revenge on each one of them for whatever they did to him. All those pains and all those betrayals came flooding back. He started remembering the sacrifices he had made for them. Burning with anger, he made a call to someone whose name was Dong-soo. Jun was running on the road, deeply drowned in thought, and did not even realize that the signal had turned red. By the time he realized it, it was too late. He thought to himself, "I wish I knew earlier that everything would end like this." Maybe I would have never cared for anyone. But as he was trying to escape his thoughts, a speeding truck hit him hard. The scene was filled with blood all around. People screamed, shouting that someone had been hit by a truck. Jin was lying on the ground, caught between life and death. As he struggled, he heard his phone ring. The voice said, "The number you have called is unavailable. Please try again later." At that moment, he felt another cruel irony. Of all the things that happened, the one that hit him was a garbage truck. With great difficulty, Jun thought, "I can't die yet." A painful memory flashed in his mind, the memory of his old friends yelling at him, telling him to die, mocking him. He remembered their faces when they betrayed him. With his last breath, he swore, "I will take revenge," that too ruthlessly. Just then, a bright light shone around him, as if some mysterious connection was being established. Another notification popped up, stating, "Connection is being verified." At the same time, a new message came, welcoming him back into the game under the username Harkin. Jun was completely shocked to see this. Now, he had to face a legendary challenge. The Beast Man-Eater, the Lord of the Labyrinth, and that too in the tutorial stage of the game. Stunned by the seriousness of this tutorial, Jun was left asking himself, what happened now? A new player nearby was feeling frustrated and shouted, "Come to your senses and help me. The monster is attacking. We'll all die soon." Jun quickly realized that defeating the creature alone was impossible, so they all joined together and made a plan to fight. During the conversation, Jun said in disbelief, "It is the same monster," which was removed from a game 5 years ago because of its difficulty. His teammate responded with surprise, saying the game Warlord was launched just 10 months ago. Jun kept repeating this in disbelief, unable to comprehend it. Noticing Jun's strange behavior, his teammates asked, "What's wrong? Why are you reacting like this?" But Jun ignored the instructions. While the teammates said, "Focus, be ready, signal when we meet," Jun said nothing and silently started walking away from the group. This made everyone confused. Jun's teammates started shouting and asking where he was going, but he stayed silent and kept moving forward, which only increased their confusion even more. Then one of them shouted, "What are you doing? Have you gone crazy? The monster is standing right in front of you." Suddenly, the beast charged towards Jun at full speed. The teammates panicked and started shouting, telling him to step back, warning that he would die. But Jun didn't hesitate for even a moment. He faced the monster with full confidence, swiftly revolving and delivering a powerful strike that killed the creature with a fatal blow. Everyone watching his strength was stunned. The beast roared loudly before collapsing, and Jun's devastating attack sent 2 of the players falling back in shock. They stood there, unable to believe that Jun had defeated the monster in just one shot. Both of them looked at him in surprise, then smiled, and one of the players openly praised Jun's talent. He extended his hand, inviting Jun to join their guild. But that simple gesture reminded Jun of a painful memory, the very moment he had once been betrayed. Jun's expression changed instantly. Anger lit up in his eyes. He said coldly, "I made my decision a while ago." Both players were confused, asking what decision he was talking about. But before they could understand anything, Jun struck. There was only rage in his eyes, a rage that demanded bloodshed. Jun was completely shattered inside. He said to himself with strict resolve, "If in this life I ever trust anyone again, even a dog would be more trustworthy than me." A message appeared on his screen. "Hero Slayer, Herculean Past. I am back." At that very moment, Jun opened his eyes and found himself in a strange place. He removed the virtual reality helmet from his head, looking around in confusion, trying to understand where he was. After a while, he realized that he was inside a gaming store, specifically a V-Gear shop selling VR equipment. As his memory started to come back, he remembered that 5 years ago, he was poor and used to play in this store because he didn't have the money to buy his own gear. A question echoed in Jun's mind. Was I actually back in the past? When the thoughts settled in, he immediately decided that if this really was the past, then a lot had happened that he could now change. The store was becoming increasingly crowded, but he moved forward, his mind working faster than ever. He reminded himself that now he had the knowledge of the next 5 years and experience. If used correctly, he could take revenge without hesitation. Without wasting any more time, he approached a store clerk, handed over his payment card, and said, "I need the best V-Care unit." The clerk, a little nervous but smiling, replied, "I'll help you right away, sir." Inside Jun, a wave of excitement and anxiety surged. He started planning his next moves, how to level up quickly, how to move faster. But a little while later, the clerk called him over and said with a sorry tone, "Sorry, sir, the balance on your card is insufficient, so the purchase can't be completed." Hearing this, Jun's face turned slightly pale. He smiled bitterly to himself, realizing he had forgotten just how poor he had been in the past. He stood there, drowned in frustration, cursing himself. Back then, he used to play here because he never had enough money to buy his own device. Now the pressure started building up inside him. He began thinking hard. How could he quickly earn money without wasting precious time? Just then, his eyes fell on a nearby advertisement screen. It was showing the image of Siri in a campaign promoting the game. A bold voice echoed from the ad. "What are you waiting for?" Siri's words were strong and commanding. "Strong people challenge. Hesitation is a luxury no one can afford." Jun stood silently in front of the advertisement, thunder flashing across the screen, while Queen Siri's voice called everyone to become true masters of war. He remained there, frozen, lost deep in thought. The bold caption flashing in front of him read, "Warlord, start now." He stood there thinking about his current situation, about what his next step should be. But then, Shri's mocking face and taunts began echoing inside his mind again. The same useless failures haunted him. But this time, something different stirred in Jun's eyes, a concrete determination. He told himself that hesitation was a luxury he no longer had. It was time for action. As the sun began to set, the scene shifted. Jun was now inside his small and simple apartment. A new VWare gaming system had just been delivered and installed. The technician said, "Setup is complete," and quickly left. Jun simply gave a short, curt reply. He stood there, thinking, holding a card in his hand. This was the fastest way to earn money now, he told himself. The card was an advertisement for a quick and easy loan service with a small amount required to get started. A little while later, Jun was sitting opposite a man, asking for a loan of 10 million bond. The man casually replied, "Something big will happen, never mind." But then he changed his tone. Suddenly, the man slammed the card on the table and placed a knife right on top of it. There was a direct and chilling message in his eyes. "If you don't return the money, your life will become hell." Chan was scared from inside, but he didn't say anything. The risk was high, but Jun took the card anyway and told himself, "I don't care about the consequences." Slowly, he began wearing the VR headset, thinking in his heart, "If I have to go down to hell to change everything, then I'm ready to face them one by one." All the faces that had wronged him started flashing before his eyes. The anger and fire burning inside him betrayed his calm expression. The star connection was loading, and he gritted his teeth in fury. The system quickly recognized him and confirmed, "Login successful. Welcome back, Hurakan." Now, Jun was once again inside the world of Warlord, taking on the character of Hurakan. He stood silently, as if waiting for someone special. Deep inside, he tried to remember the name. Someone important was about to appear. A shining girl appeared before him, golden energy swirling around her. Her blonde hair glowed with a bright light. She smiled and introduced herself. "I'm Ariadne, and I will be the guide of your journey." Jun immediately recognized her, his expression tightening. Ariadne extended her hand towards him, her attention completely on him, and began explaining the basic rules of the game. She said, "You have 3 starter classes available right now. You must choose one. The skills you pick now will determine the direction of your specialization later." This was not just choosing a class. Jun knew this was the very first step of his entire story. Ariadne first explained the warrior class, direct combat, fighting on the front lines. Jun thought for a moment about that class, considering that he already had some experience with weapons. Maybe he could level up faster that way. But then he rejected it. He knew deep down that walking the path of a frontline fighter alone would be too difficult. Next, Ariadne introduced the cleric class, a support role, healing and helping others. Jin didn't even waste a single moment thinking about it. He plainly said to Ariadne, "I have no intention of protecting or supporting anyone." Now, only one option was left. Ariadne smiled slightly and said, "Good luck. Enjoy your adventure." Then, she started activating a selection. Golden magical energy began to radiate from her hands. The swirling energy rose and surrounded Jun, wrapping him in a blinding golden light, all sides, darkening his face. There was a surprised expression flickering across his features, and then a system message appeared. Base class selected. You will now be taken to the tower of your choice. The scene shifted. Jun arrived at a mysterious, towering structure. A powerful, resounding voice echoed through the space. "Welcome, youngsters seeking knowledge." It was the voice of Golko, the master responsible for the desk class. Golko, who trained players in the mystic arts, asked, "What magic do you want to learn?" Without hesitation, Jun replied, "Dark magic." Golko was left stunned for a moment. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. He asked softly, "What do you mean? Dark magic?" There were many forms of magic, but Jun stood firm. Again he answered, "I told you, I will only learn dark magic." Golko's expression changed instantly. Worry was clearly visible on his face now. He warned Jun, "Dark magic is very dangerous. It can destroy your soul." But Jun replied in a cold, clear tone, "I know the risk, and I have chosen this path myself." Golko started trembling slightly. Seeing such a bold decision shook even him. Then, suddenly, Golko began changing form, his body twisting into a terrifying, shadowy skeletal figure. Mockingly, he said, "It has been a long time since anyone chose this path." Then a skill book appeared in front of Golko. He said, "If you're really ready, put your hand on this book. But remember to think carefully. This path is not easy." There was a fire of determination burning fiercely in Jun's eyes. He wasn't going to turn back now, not even for a second. Without hesitation, Jun placed his hand on the skill book, ignoring Golko's warning. Golko shook his head and muttered, "I already told you. This is the path of fools. It is not for those who walk without thinking." But Jun smiled confidently and replied, "I am not the one who could be called a fool." Jun's unwavering confidence made Golko laugh loudly. He was genuinely impressed. "You are very interesting. Such people are rare," Golko said. At that very moment, a memory flashed through Jun's mind, a famous video from his past life. He remembered a player who used necromancy, the dark art of summoning the dead, to defeat a powerful boss alone without any help. The thought crystallized in Jun's mind. This was the power he would claim. Then a system message popped up. "Congratulations. You have officially become a necromancer. Title unlocked, Novice Necromancer. Skill unlocked, Skeleton Shard." A confident smile returned to Jun's face once again. Repeating the name of his new skill, Skeleton Shard, Jun activated the skill. Energy gathered in his hand, and a skeletal head began to form. When he threw it onto the ground, the magical white energy slowly began taking the shape of a skeleton warrior. A message appeared. To complete the skeletal warrior, you need to believe in your selection. Jun silently watched the skeleton forming and said to himself, "This time, I will become a necromancer at any cost." As soon as Jun's skeleton was fully formed, the transformation into a true necromancer was complete. Now he was ready. Smiling, he said, "Let's level up." Then he asked himself, "Where is the training dungeon?" But before he could move, he noticed something weird. His new summoned skeleton was holding its own skull and bouncing it like a ball. Jun stood stunned, watching the skeleton's bizarre behavior. He thought, why is the skeleton behaving like this? Without wasting any more time, he entered the glowing portal and reached the beginner training dungeon. But even there, his doubt grew stronger. The skeleton was still behaving strangely, not at all like he remembered. Is the skill still at a low level? He wondered. Immediately, he opened the skill window and started reading the details. From there, he figured out the reason. Maybe the skeleton was acting like this because of low mastery level. Now he understood. To fix this, he would have to increase the level quickly. At that moment, a loud thunder echoed through the dungeon. Creatures had appeared, coal wolves. They weren't very strong, but they were fast. A decent challenge for the skeleton. Jun set his eyes on the wolves and, without delay, threw a skeleton shard at the enemies. The magical energy surged forward. The skeleton formed completely this time, ready for battle. As soon as the enemies appeared, the skeleton sensed them. The wolves took combat stances, growling slowly and cautiously. Jun, confident and smug, gave the command to the skeleton to attack. The skeleton immediately rushed forward and attacked the wolves fiercely. Jun was shocked. The skeleton was performing better than he expected. He felt a surge of hope. If everything went on like this, he could reach the top level soon. But his surprise soon turned into shock. The skeleton's bones scattered all over the ground. Jun stood frozen, disbelief all over his face. What happened? The skeleton had just collapsed. His expression twisted in confusion. He felt like the system was mocking him. Panic rose inside him as he quickly opened the skill window, desperate to find where he had gone wrong. Reading through it, he realized the problem. The skeleton's combat mode wasn't set. There was a built-in AI system that learned from battle experience and had 3 modes: defense, offense, and a special mode. Jun slapped his forehead, sighing heavily. "Hey friend, this was basic," he muttered. Then he activated the defensive mode. Suddenly, the skeleton's eyes flashed brightly. But before Jun could celebrate, he watched in horror. The wolves started dragging the skeleton like it was a toy, tearing it apart piece by piece. There was no resistance at all. The defensive mode left Jun even more stunned. Desperation creeping in, he quickly activated the third option, special mode, hoping that maybe something would finally go right. But what happened next crushed all his hopes. The skeleton suddenly started dancing. Yes, genuinely dancing. Jun stared in disbelief as his skeleton began doing dance moves in the middle of the battlefield. He immediately realized the situation was beyond saving. Tears welled up in his eyes. He blamed himself, thinking, "What have I done?" The skeleton was completely destroyed, lying broken on the ground. Clutching his head, Jun groaned, "I'm going to lose my mind." He made up his mind then and there. He was going to delete the character immediately. He tried, but the system message had been popping up for 3 months straight. Do not delete short-term character accounts. Maybe now Jun was truly trapped. There was only one thing before his eyes: complete humiliation. Sitting on the ground in despair, the drowned Jun mumbled, "I can't even marry my chosen class." He realized he couldn't even change his class anymore. That's when he remembered something even worse. The loan installments were about to start from next month. Thinking sarcastically, he muttered, "Maybe I'll get hit by a car again. Why is my luck so bad right now?" As everything seemed to spiral downward, he tried to encourage himself, saying things were just starting to get better. He cast a frustrated glance at the useless skeleton standing nearby, the same skeleton that hadn't helped him even once. His frustration flared, and he began scolding the skeleton. "You're driving me crazy. Don't move. Stay right there." The skeleton stood awkwardly in place. Suddenly, a memory from his past life flashed through Jun's mind, a skilled necromancer. He recalled how that guy controlled his skeletons flawlessly. He started thinking, was that guy a fool? How did he train those skeletons? Then, an idea struck him like lightning. Immediately, he opened the skill description window again. Digging deeper this time, he found something crucial he had completely missed before. The creature came with a deep learning system. It gained experience through battle. This was the real key. Jun realized that his skeleton had actually been observing and learning from the Coal Wolves' fight. Filled with newfound determination, he walked over to the skeleton and sat next to it. He stood up and said confidently, "How lucky are you that I am your master?" The skeleton tilted its head slightly, confused, staring at Jun like a little girl seeing a superhero. Grinning, Jun said, "People call me a genius because I taught every guy on my team to reach the top." Then he added, "There's a golden rule to remember. If you attack and can't dodge, you die. Saying this, Jun suddenly punched the skeleton. It fell hard onto the ground. But Jun didn't stop. Every time the skeleton got up, he launched another attack. While hitting it repeatedly, he kept explaining, "Don't just stand there like an idiot after taking a hit. Think, how will you counter?" Then he asked sharply, "Did you understand?" The skeleton stood up, taking a ready stance. A new seriousness flickered in its glowing eyes, and a confident look settled on its face. Jun smiled. "Now you're my real training." After some time, coal wolves reappeared, ready to attack. This time, Jun stood aside and watched as the skeleton charged forward on its own. It immediately began applying what it had learned, dodging skillfully at the right moments, counterattacking with sharp strikes. The skeleton fought with impressive skill now, and Jun couldn't take his eyes off it. Suddenly, in the middle of fighting, the skeleton paused and turned to look at Jun with deep admiration in its glowing eyes. Jun stared back and scolded it mildly. "Don't look at me like that, idiot, fight properly." But then Jun smiled a little and said, "Your last move wasn't bad." Jun's skill, fragment of the skeleton, started to improve faster as he continued training and fighting alongside his skeleton. He kept pushing himself too. Then, a system message appeared, "Player level up." Seeing this, a different kind of satisfaction and happiness washed over him. After that, he headed towards a new player's village, Figus Castle, which was bustling with fresh players. While walking through the village, Jun began to think that this skeleton was truly a testament to the hard work he had put in. It was worth it. He felt that if he could get 2 or 3 more days of training, he could comfortably clear the training dungeon solo. But then, a real challenge crept into his mind. The first step was to reach level 10. Just then, a voice called out from behind. "Oi!" Jun turned around and saw a big man standing there with some of his followers. The man was shouting in anger. Apparently, Jun had bumped his shoulder without realizing it, and now the thug was furious that Jun hadn't apologized. Jun started thinking, "This looks like the third-rate red thugs, wasting my precious time." He seriously considered finishing them off right there when one of the men suddenly moved to attack. But before Jun could react, someone else intervened. A man wearing strange clothes casually stepped in and easily stopped the attacker's hand. With a smile, he said, "It's not right to kill such people, understand?" The big man growled angrily. "Who are you? Are you with him?" But the newcomer simply replied, "I'm not okay with this." Jun immediately recognized the man, Methador Shev, a very famous person from his past life, a powerful warrior. Jun confirmed it by glancing at the man's massive muscles and the signature odd number branded on his gear. This is what Jun took in so clearly that he remembered Methador was, in his past life, the first-class warrior and the most powerful player. He couldn't understand what such a legendary personality was doing at a place like this. Jun felt a bit confused and uneasy. On the other hand, Methador started mocking the attacker's behavior, imitating him in a sarcastic way. The attacker grew tired and started justifying himself, saying, "First he hit me, and if you didn't know that, then why are you getting involved?" Methador smiled coolly and said, "There's an old saying, an eye for an eye." But the next moment, Methador released a dangerous combat aura. Fear was clearly visible on the faces of the attackers. The big man froze completely, while Jun stood there carefully watching the whole scene unfold. Methador, still calm and sarcastic, said, "You punched me in the palm, so now I too have a right." Then suddenly one of the tired attackers screamed, "You're crazy." "This is Method Shev," he spoke in a fearful voice, trembling. "He's the leader of Red Bull's guild, the guild that's ranked top 30. This is the same Methador that people call the killer because he's absolutely crazy about fighting." The attacker was completely shocked, realizing that such a huge figure had gotten involved in such a minor incident. Methador slowly advanced toward him and, with an angry tone, said, "Now, your answer?" The attacker was so scared he couldn't speak. The next moment, he stood there trembling. Then suddenly his companions turned tail and fled, apologizing as they ran off without even looking back. Methador smiled and said, "It's just amazing how matters get resolved through talks." Then he turned to Jun with a friendly smile and asked, Are you okay? Don't take such people seriously. But Jun just silently took a step back. Seeing Jun's reaction like this, Methador was a little shocked. Then Jun looked at him and said in a cold voice, "Now I need your help." Without saying anything more, Methador walked away lightly. He smiled and said, "This guy is so cold." Jun walked away by himself, feeling angry and frustrated because he was feeling so weak. His hands trembled before the might of Methador. He clearly admitted it to himself. "I was scared." But at that moment, he made a firm promise. "Next time I meet Methador, I'll meet him as a completely different person." There was a different sense of determination in his eyes now. There was a glow, and his face turned absolutely serious. The scene shifted back to the training dungeon where a soft fire was burning on the walls. Jun sat alone, thinking about how massive the gap was between him and a powerful player like Methador. Then he remembered another figure, a being just as big and powerful. Jun realized that if he ever wanted to take revenge, he would have to become much stronger than he was now. Suddenly, a powerful beast resembling a tiger appeared. It launched a sharp attack at him, but Jun's skeleton companion immediately jumped in between. Using its newly learned skills, the skeleton attacked the tiger aggressively. The tiger struggled a lot while fighting against the skeleton's relentless assault. It received heavy damage, and the battle ended shortly after. A system notification popped up, "Cold Tiger killed." This led to Jun leveling up. But even after this success, Jun wasn't happy. Reaching level 10 had taken him 3 whole days, more than he had expected. Although Skeleton looked proud and happy, Jun's disappointment was obvious. Skeleton tilted its head, unable to understand why Jun looked so upset. Then a new message appeared. "Congratulations. You have reached level 10. All monsters in the beginner's area have been cleared. The beginner's mark has been withdrawn. Rewards will now be distributed." Reading this, happiness finally spread across Jun's face. Then, a device appeared on his wrist. The War Watch was revealed. It had many features: status, quests, map, inventory, and it also worked as a communication device. For the first time in a long while, Jun felt really good. Using the device, he requested to open the status window. In the next moment, it appeared: name, Haken level, 10 class. Necromancer, he already had some points allocated in his stats. Strength, 3 stamina, 3 intelligence, 2 mana, 5. Then a new message came: "Please distribute your earned points." This was the first time Jun thought seriously about how to allocate them. Normally, as a necromancer, one would invest in intelligence or mana. But Jun did something completely unexpected. With confidence, he put all his points into strength. Another message popped up: strength plus 50. Jun looked at his hand where another window floated. Total strength, 53. A smile slowly formed on Jun's face. He was completely satisfied with the choice he made. It felt perfect according to him. But the skeleton stood beside him, staring at Jun with wide, confused eyes. Jun's disappointment was clearly visible. It was as if Skeleton thought Jun had given up his dream of becoming a necromancer by putting all stat points into strength. Seeing this, Jun got irritated and started shouting at Skeleton. Then he asked, "Why are you staring like that?" He lightly struck the skeleton on the head and said, "I haven't given up being a necromancer, understand? I'm teaching you to grow. I'm helping you." He left it at that. Jun believed that even if he increased intelligence, it wouldn't matter much. By increasing physical strength, he could reach the peak of his past combat techniques and transfer that training to the skeleton. Then in a serious manner, he said, "I am risking my life for you. Focus on growth." With a confident smile, he added, "There are more ways to make up for the lack of stats." After this, Jun headed towards Figus Castle. He made his way to the Adventurers Guild building where a huge crowd of new adventurers had gathered, all excited and arguing with each other about the quests. Jun had to understand which quest he could take that was available for now. The quests weren't that great, but the enthusiasm in everyone was clear. After all, they were all beginners. He approached a staff member of the guild and said, "I want to take on a quest." The staff member looked at him with surprise and said, "The only quests left are very difficult. No one wants to take them." "Are you sure?" Jun paused and looked at the quest list carefully. He saw that the quests were really useless, but then a confident expression came to his face. He said to himself, "Finally, this is the hidden card I was looking for." The quest he chose was called Mount Pima Cave. The objective was to eliminate all the low-level monsters around Mount Pima, and the reward was only 10 gold coins. The staff member frowned and asked, "Are you really taking such a low-reward quest?" Jun replied with certainty, "Yes, I will. I'm absolutely sure." He knew that if he completed this boring quest before reaching level 15, he would get a rare title, Prospect. He remembered that titles greatly boosted character stats, and the Prospect title specifically gave percentage-based stat boosts, which could make him very powerful, even overpowered. With confidence burning in his heart, Jun thought, "From here, my real journey will begin, like a legend." Then Jun immediately started the next step of his plan. He announced with excitement, "Now first, I have to prepare some necessary equipment." After some time, he reached Mount Pima, where his quest was supposed to take place. But as soon as he saw his reflection, shock and frustration began to show on his face. The gear he had was absurdly bright and strange. He was wearing weird clothes and looked as if he had come straight out of a circus. Embarrassed by his awkward appearance, Jun became filled with anger and irritation. He screamed in his heart, "What the hell is this?" He remembered that when he had gone to buy good clothes, he didn't have enough money because he had spent most of it on Skeleton's gear. Because of that, he had to buy cheap, ridiculous-looking equipment for himself. But now, Jun was determined. "I have to finish this quest quickly so I can afford proper clothes." Gritting his teeth, he moved into the jungle to complete the mission as fast as possible. As soon as Jun stepped out of the bushes, a blood-soaked hand reached out, as if making one last attempt for help. The injured person fell unconscious in the grass right in front of him. The boy, lying there with blood on his face, struggled to make any sound. He was gasping for breath, but his voice was lost, his trembling fingers leaving a trail of failed hopes on the ground. A few boys stood at a distance, their sinister expressions twisted into cruel smiles. They laughed as they watched the condition of their victim, taking pleasure in someone else's pain. Somewhere deeper in that same forest, a young man, living in a corner of the woods, shouted happily. Maine finally mounted insurance came. His name was Multi Joe, and he stood proudly in his shining armor. "Now my adventure begins. I'm level 11 now. Maybe I'll make it to the top rankers." His praise was suddenly cut short when he heard a scream from nearby. "Rescue!" Immediately, he ran toward the sound of the scream, seeing a man carrying his injured friend, pleading for help. "The creature that attacked us. It wasn't like any normal monster," the man said, trembling. Multi's expression turned serious as he asked for details. The injured man, still shaking, managed to stammer out a few more words, barely able to speak. "It was huge, terrifying. It had glowing eyes." Multi's interest peaked, his grip tightening around his weapon. He turned to the man and said, "Show me where it happened." The voice of the injured man was trembling as he spoke. "We were just lucky. I was able to escape with my life, but now there's no healing potion that can help. My friend's condition is getting worse." Multi consoled him, saying, "I have some potions. I'll give them to you immediately." The gray-haired man, filled with gratitude, started rummaging through his bag, tears in his eyes as he thanked Multi. "We will definitely return this favor one day," he said. But at that moment, Multi glanced at his watch. Before he could react, a man attacked from behind, knocking him to the ground. Blood soaked the ground around him, and his breath came in ragged gasps. Disbelief filled his eyes as he lay there, struggling for air. The attacker stood over him, laughing. "So innocent, so trusting. Perfect target," one of them sneered. "Now, we'll make good use of everything you've got," another said. Their leader let out a cruel laugh. "This was a cheap trap, and yet you fell for it, foolish noob." A system notification popped up. Player hit Multi, then another appeared. Players wore watch drops to the ground as loot. The gang gathered around, laughing at the watch. "Newbies never get old," one of the men said with a grin. Their leader, still smiling dangerously, added, "Let's find the next victim." He proudly displayed the Raff family guild symbol, a notorious guild known for its cruelty. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, Jun's skeleton stood in the shadows, ready for action. Two large trees loomed ahead, and the beasts lingering in the darkness howled. Wooden wolves, their glowing red eyes striking fear into any who dared approach. Attack mode, Jun ordered, raising his finger. The skeleton's eyes gleamed with a bright blue glow as it sprang into action. Its sword cut through the air, swiftly and decisively. One wolf fell after another as the skeleton attacked with precision. The system buzzed with notifications. Skeleton warrior defeats antique tree wolf. 375 XP gained. Jun gains 366 XP. A small smile spread across Jun's face as he thought to himself, I did a good thing. After gearing up his skeleton, Jun glanced at his own strange, brightly colored clothes and muttered to himself, no matter how weird I look, as long as the work gets done, it's fine. The skeleton, noticing its master's attire, grabbed its head in a funny way, as if embarrassed for Jun's condition. Jun glared at it and said, shut up and get ready. We'll level up quickly and clear this place. The skeleton obediently picked up its weapon and moved forward. But just as it was about to strike, a sudden, sharp sound pierced the air. An arrow shot at breakneck speed and hit the skeleton straight in the head, freezing in place. Jun was completely shocked and immediately became alert, scanning his surroundings for the source of the arrow. Soon, two men approached casually, offering an apology. Sorry, one said, we thought you guys were monsters. They moved closer, explaining the situation in a laid-back manner. Jun, keeping quiet, accepted their apology, but a slight tremor appeared on his face as he noticed something odd. One of the men wore a war watch on his wrist, hidden beneath his clothes. There was blood on the watch, and the weapon slung over his shoulder also had traces of blood. Jun's mind raced. Wow, how wonderful. These guys have nerve. He instantly understood they had come to trick him. Before the moment grew awkward, the narrator stepped in with a grin and said, let's help you level up. Consider it our apology. John looked uncertain. Okay, do you really want to help? He asked. The narrator simply nodded. This was, after all, how things worked in the jungle. Just then, the distant roar of wild animals echoed through the trees. One of the pair smiled and said, it's the perfect time to start leveling up. He turned to John and laid out the plan. They would weaken the monsters, and John would deliver the finishing blow to gain the experience points. John agreed, but his gaze lingered on them suspiciously. From behind, the two whispered to each other, as if quietly advancing some hidden agenda. Up ahead, the bulky warrior raised his weapon and asked, are you confirming then? They deliberately provoked the wooden wolves, which made the monsters angry. His fellow mage cast a spell that increased the wolves' attack power. Then he pushed a wolf toward John and started acting, oops, happened by mistake. John was surprised. The wolf ran straight at him. He immediately raised his hands to defend himself. Those two, standing far away, were ready for this. They looked forward to seeing John fall down screaming. But in the next moment, John and Skeleton used teamwork to rescue the situation. John knocked the wolf out in just a few seconds. As soon as he won, he stared at Skeleton. He asked, why did it take so long to react? John and Skeleton felt a little embarrassed. Skeleton took a pose, as if he too had realized that his reaction time needed to be improved. John gave him a confident smile. He gave a thumbs up to the others and said, let's go. Continue your experiment. They were both shocked to see such power. They didn't expect that. Now, all three of them gradually started to have questions in their minds. Let's see what level this guy actually is. Is he really a beginner? They came up with a new plan. This time, many of them would send a big wave of monsters together so that he couldn't handle it. John got busy fighting monsters. The warrior used stealth to attack from behind. He seized the opportunity and swung his heavy hammer in the air. He lifted himself up and screamed. This time someone won't make a mistake. He hit the hammer with all his might. He was sure this attack would fall directly on John. But in the next moment, John dodged the attack with perfect timing. The man was astonished, his eyes wide. His attack had missed. In front of him, John countered with lightning speed. The sword twisted from beneath his massive body and ripped open his chest. Blood oozed out, and he stumbled. At that moment, Skeleton attacked from the other side and surrounded him completely. The two thieves were shocked to see all of this. One of them screamed, "What are you seeing?" Meanwhile, John, without wasting a moment, gave the command to Skeleton, "Attack." Skeleton's eyes started glowing with blue light. Then both John and Skeleton moved faster than lightning. In just a few seconds, both of them had grown stronger. One of them got close to the enemies. The thief started shouting out of fear, "Wait, listen, can talk." But John told her to stop. Skeleton and John ignored him. John hit a double strike. It was so powerful that both enemies jumped into the air and felt the pain. They fell to the ground, screaming. The body was blown away in a wave of blue energy while John and Skeleton stood by. John turned slowly and said, "I know. How can people like you be trusted? You break, you rob, you cheat." Then he slowly moved towards the injured person and said, "Maybe I'd fall into your trap first, but not anymore." The thief lying on the ground was crying and pleading, "Please take everything. I'll give you my life. Just spare me." But John had turned cold. He said just two words in a flat voice, "Can't be." And without any mercy, he gave him the final blow. The very next moment, a notification came on the screen. Player Ralph died, honorless. For echoes dropped from it. They found out how many people had been killed by them. Then John said laughingly, "That just now is the most sensible thing to do in the situation." Taking full advantage of all the spoils, they started with the clothes. Skeleton shouted loudly at the corpse of his massive opponent, kicking him like he was venting all his anger. There was blood on the bones, but he looked at John differently. He stared at him, and John looked back at him warmly. John asked, "Do you also need something?" Skeleton went near her, extended his hand, and gave her the blue magic. She healed with light, after which Skeleton raised his sword in joy. Now it was new. He was wearing pants and was a proud guy. John stood like a warrior, laughing. He said, "Do you like this new look so much?" Then he calmed down a bit and talked about his appearance in the game. He said it doesn't matter how strong you look from the outside. What really counts is the strength within. But even after saying that, John herself started showing off a bit while walking in her new clothes. Looking at Skeleton, she said softly, "War watches turn out to be the real jackpot." She then explained, whenever a player's war watch is sold, a random item from their inventory drops. And that item can be anything like rare black goblin pants, a sword filled with the essence of the ancient tree, or even cursed skill books. Money also started laughing at John's creed and said, "This is where my luck turned, brother." He then raised his hand and showed a special golden mask. Smiling with pride, he said happily, "I expected this. I've completed the craft ahead of time." Then, with determination, he added, "Now I'm going to start recording my gameplay. For that, a solid identity has to be created." He admitted that in order to proceed to the next stage, it was very important to create a unique and different identity. At that very moment, old memories returned to his eyes, memories from when he sat in front of a guild member, excitedly sharing his unique idea. John had proposed, "If our whole guild wears the same mask, then we'll spread throughout the server like wildfire." After some thought, the guy nodded in agreement. John happily announced, "Our new guild will be called Haha Mask." Then he took off the mask he had been holding. He looked at it and thought to himself, he had once dreamed of creating a completely different identity. In the end, this seemed like the right path. John raised the mask into the air. It shimmered with blue magical energy. But then, anger flickered across his face. He thought, now no one cares about my hard work or my items. Yet no anger could steal the glow from his face. He said softly, "Now I will wear this mask and prove the value of every decision I make. I will prove my worth." Then he put on the mask. He looked at Skeleton and said, "Let's go now. Let's go." There was a seriousness in his eyes now. The scene shifted. He was now in a place that looked like an old, broken ruin, cracked mountain terrain that resembled something out of the ancient world. They had reached a place filled with ancient ruins, and in the center stood a massive gate. John and skeletons went in through that gate. A message appeared on the screen. You have entered Cave's dungeon. Inside, John slowly neared the stone walls. While walking, he said, in this place, blue werewolves should have been a little tougher. But now my gear is going to be upgraded. It's over, I'll finish it in 10 minutes, dungeon. He shouted in excitement. Skeletons started running ahead through the narrow passage, and John followed him at full readiness. But a few hours later, John was lying on his back on the ground, staring up at the ceiling, tired and motionless. Then suddenly, he got up and shouted, has even a single monster not come? He began to rave in anger. I feel something's wrong. If someone had entered this dungeon and cleared it, a system message would have come. Or it's a bug or something. Then suddenly, his eyes caught something strange stuck on the wall. A glowing mess of swelling purple energy. He quickly moved closer and touched it. It was something different. Suddenly, that energy began spreading rapidly. It was like a new gate was opening around him. The air began to distort and pull inwards. A message appeared on the screen. You have found the instant dungeon. You have to get in there. John knew. Instant dungeons were randomly generated. When one opened inside a normal dungeon, the original dungeon would pause until it was completed. He also knew these dungeons were harder, but the rewards were equally great. But the risk was greater. Either clear it or die. There was no middle path. John thought for a moment about backing out. If I die in 2 days, it would be better if I'm out of the game. I should do some other mission. But in the next moment, his expression changed. He looked straight ahead. He told himself, as he stepped toward the portal, just want to complete this. That's all I need. And with that, he went inside the portal completely. With determination, as soon as John entered the portal, a bright flashing light engulfed him. His eyes were dazzled, forcing him to raise his hand to shield them. As the light dimmed slightly, he saw that he was now standing in front of a massive arena, right in the center of what looked like a Roman Colosseum. The skeleton was there with him, standing at his side. John glanced around and thought to himself, is this some kind of arena duel? A little nervous, he muttered, which opponent are we going to get now? Just then, the ground beneath them started to tremble slowly. John was shocked. What is happening? He said. A massive, werewolf-like creature burst into the arena with a furious roar. Above its head, the label corrupted werewolf glowed menacingly. John took a step back in surprise. Such a powerful monster. Corrupted too? How come? Suddenly, the beast charged at him. Its first attack was so powerful that a shockwave rippled through the arena. John was flung straight into the wall, groaning in pain. Dust clouded the air. The skeleton, still standing in the smoke, was startled but quickly planted his feet, raised his sword, and braced himself, his posture showing resolve. Though the situation looked dangerous, John stood up again with a sarcastic smile. He laughed and said, now all this is comedy, it seems. Then out loud, he added, corrupted monsters, too usefully connected to the main quest. That means I turn out to be lucky. He looked over at the skeleton and asked, are you ready? Go fight. If you don't beat it, dinner's canceled tonight. With a confident smile, he ran straight toward the monster. The skeleton followed in sync, raising his sword. John used that as leverage to leap into the air. As John rose, the corrupted werewolf looked up, its gaze fixed, almost as if staring at a delicious prey. At that moment, the whacked gem glowed dark purple from within, summoning energy that merged into his weapon. John activated a skill, Devil Scars. Dark energy coursed through the werewolf, and there was a flicker of surprise in the beast's eyes. The effect was clearly visible. John's attack landed directly, causing the werewolf to scream in pain. It stumbled backward, one of its arms slashed and falling. A message appeared on the screen, Skill Devil Scars activated. Enemy attributes decreased by 10%. With a slight smile, John remarked, this is even worse. There's not that much damage the first time, but the monster didn't stop. It launched another furious attack. Its next punch came fast. John braced himself for the impact. Then, a new notification popped up. Corrupted werewolf has entered berserk state. Looking at the status effect, John muttered sarcastically, thought the instant dungeon would be easy. But nope, not again. Realizing the danger, he decided to use the special skill he had been saving. In the next moment, he raised his hand and said, "Slot on." He pressed the device on his wrist. Suddenly, a surge of strong blue energy erupted from his body. An explosive wave spread outward in all directions, forming a spiraling energy field around him. The ground shook, and with a loud burst, the glow lit up the entire arena. When the light faded, John stood revealed in a new armor set, surrounded by dark energy. He said, "Now start. Let's do the real fight." This was his special skill, Slot on Game Mode. It granted temporary power directly from the game world. The energy connected to the skill boosted the player into an enhanced form, where strength increased many times over. This form was unique, its appearance, power, and abilities distinct. That's why players called it Final Mode. Now, surrounded by blue energy, John stood in his final mode. He raised his hand and said, "Come on." On the other side, the corrupted werewolf let out a thunderous roar, revealing its massive teeth with pure, savage intensity. Then, with terrifying speed, it charged toward John and dashed to the side. It raised its claws to launch a fierce attack. Although John managed to evade, the werewolf still succeeded in injuring him once. The monster continued to launch strong, unrelenting attacks, but John skillfully dodged them all, though one swipe came frighteningly close. It almost seemed like it grazed him. John seized the opportunity and leapt back in retreat. In the very next moment, the werewolf attacked again, but John narrowly escaped once more. Now he knew this beast was not normal. Its speed and brute strength made it a dangerous threat. John quickly assessed if this creature lands even 4 clean hits, the fight could end right there. As the werewolf lunged toward him again, John charged with a slight smile. "I have another plan," he told himself. Then, in a flash, he unleashed a sharp sword attack. A wave of blue energy burst forward, heading straight toward the beast. The attack was aimed precisely. It struck its target. A scream echoed across the arena as the werewolf stumbled backward slightly. John remained exactly where he stood, fully prepared, and said, "This is what makes this game fun." But at that very moment, his expression changed. The monster had activated its special skill. The ground beneath John's feet suddenly trembled and cracked. He was instantly reminded. This was the berserk state, where the beast's power increased many times over. He had forgotten. As he turned, he saw the werewolf now right beneath him, red eyes glowing, preparing to finish him off as John fell through the air. But John smirked and taunted, "Hey, you've forgotten something too." In that moment, the skeleton appeared between them, fearless, sword raised high. With a powerful strike, the skeleton landed a clean hit on the beast, chopping off another arm, and once again, passed the momentum back to John. The skeleton had created an opening. "You called it out. Let's move like we trained," John shouted. The werewolf watched, stunned, as both John and the skeleton charged toward it at super speed. Before it could react, the duo launched a coordinated attack. The power of their double strike was overwhelming. The werewolf's body began to burst from the inside, breaking down slowly into small, crumbling pieces, offering no resistance. In the very next moment, a message appeared on the screen. "Corrupted werewolf has been defeated." Soon after, another message followed. "Slot on has been deactivated by John." Victorious, John gave a slight smile and said, "The result wasn't complete." Then, another quest card appeared, its mission now marked complete. The reward, 10 gold coins. Immediately after the battle, more system notifications began appearing in front of John. One of them read, "Skeleton has defeated a powerful monster. Skill has now ranked up T." Along with that came a tally of total earnings, 20,865 gold coins, and an inventory list showing the loot obtained. Reading this, John looked over and found the skull and belt among the items, then laughed happily. "These are the rewards? This is amazing," he said cheerfully. Suddenly, another system message popped up on his screen. He He had obtained a rare necklace, the Corrupted Tracker necklace, a unique Chronicle-type item. John immediately checked the stats. It gave him a boost of 18 points across various classifications. He stood there stunned. Even among high-rank items, this one stood out. High-rank items are non-tradable, though. But this is better than standard unique items, he said to himself. This is indeed a rare piece. Then his eyes fell on the name again, Corrupted Tracker. His expression shifted. Memories of his earlier suspicions about the main quest began resurfacing in his mind. At that moment, 3 glowing windows appeared in front of him, each showing a new title just added to his account. The first title, Promising Rookie, grants plus 3% intelligence and magic. Exactly the kind of boost John had hoped for. The second title, Challenger of Heroes, increases endurance by 3 points. It was well-deserved, considering he had solo cleared an instant dungeon. But the third title left him completely shocked. Corrupted Tracker, he wasn't expecting it at all. His jaw dropped as he remembered that was the title of the first chapter in the main quest line. Everything suddenly became clear. All the clues, all the corruption, now it meant something. The main quest line, Warlord's Discount, it formed the backbone of the game world. It featured central characters, major bosses, and exclusive rewards that every player dreamed of earning. John remembered his past life. He had barely made it to Chapter 4 of the main quest. But now, I unlocked it this quickly, he asked himself, stunned. This can't be just luck. Then, with disbelief and joy mixing in his voice, John shouted, I hit the jackpot. He immediately initiated the logout sequence, still in disbelief at what he had just discovered. The scene cuts to the real world. The news had already begun to spread. Guild Hydra had officially entered the last chapter of the corruption quest. They had 3 months to complete it. We see a player sitting quietly in front of his screen, a cup in his hand, a deep, contemplative frown on his face. Then he scoffs and mutters, half tauntingly, It's a real jackpot, huh? Anger flashed across his face. Disappointment was clear. In frustration, he slammed his forehead onto the table. Someone's already triggered the final chapter of that quest, he muttered. And now, if I step in and do anything to try to claim it, I might not even survive. He sat still in silence for a moment, then said to himself, maybe I should stop here and just prepare for the next chapter when it opens. But after a pause, a spark of realization lit up his face. Wait, this could be it. My chance. He realized something critical. At this very moment, the attention of the entire server was focused on the Count Corruption quest. This quest was about to become the first major milestone of the entire game. And now, it was nearing its conclusion. As he leaned back, a spark of excitement flickered in John's mind. If I can release a video about this quest right now, it'll go viral for sure, he thought. This wasn't just a personal victory, it was a golden marketing opportunity. I mean, imagine the views. I'll be a legend overnight. In his mind, he pictured himself sitting like a king on a throne, surrounded by wealth, glory, and internet fame. He laughed to himself. This is a blessing. He immediately began recording all his gameplay footage, already thinking ahead to the edit. But he knew one thing clearly. Editing is the most important part. You can't hand this over to just anyone. This video needed impact, style, and a professional touch. So he decided he'd contact the one person who, in his past life, had been called the god of editing. This is the right person, John said to himself. The scene cuts to a small room, where a pink-haired girl wearing glasses slurps noodles, eyes glued to her phone screen. Her name was Romani. A notification blinked on her phone. Dungeon clear video, edit request. Harkin Romani scoffed, pushing up her glasses. A newbie, she said sarcastically. She tapped on the file. Probably some spoiled rich kid trying to show off on the internet. But the moment the video began playing, her entire expression changed. She jumped up from her chair, eyes wide. It was like she'd just seen something important. Romani leaned in closer to the screen. Her eyes sharpened with intense focus. She whispered to herself, I found it. Romani, widely known online as Hellmouth, was a legendary freelance video editor. Now, holding her phone tight, she grinned with a fire in her eyes. This is my inspiration, she muttered. Elsewhere, high above the city skyline, a woman stood in her luxurious apartment, gazing calmly out the window. She held a sleek tablet in her hands. Her expression was cool and unreadable. Just then, an employee rushed into the room. "Director," he said breathlessly. "You call?" The woman turned slightly and said, "There's been a new video about the Count Corruption quest." The employee handed over a report. "It's different from the others," he said. "A level 15 player defeated the corrupted werewolf. Solo." The director raised her eyebrows in mild surprise. "This has never happened before," the employee added. He continued, "I've already had the team verify the footage. It's all real." The player's level checks out. The woman glanced at the footage on her tablet and smirked. "How amusing," she said with sharp confidence. Then she turned to the assistant and gave a simple command, "I want him." Now, at that moment, her true identity was revealed. Her name was Siri Financial, one of the most powerful celebrities in the world and the true face of the massive corporation, Thunder Group. But in the world of Wallet, she was known as Shri, the Thunder Queen. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoy this manhwa as much as I do. And guess what? There's another brand new manhwa recap dropping at the same time. So make sure to check it out. You're definitely going to love it. Thanks for watching. The next day, the protagonist checks his phone and freezes. The video he uploaded already has over 6,000 views. He feels awkward, remembering how long it took him to reach numbers like that before. Romani messages him first, asking if he saw the views and when the next video is coming. That alone tells him something has changed. Lying back in his pod, he admits to himself he has no plan. He doubts he'll run into another monster like that anytime soon and considers waiting until level 50, but decides he can't waste the momentum. He logs back in, knowing now isn't the time to slow down. Elsewhere, Shev the Slayer replays the video, commenting on how impressive the movements are every time. Something about the player feels familiar. Yell, affiliated with the Red Bulls, joins him and teases him for watching it again. Shev points out the mass player and talks about how natural his movements are, especially how he trained his summon. Yell snaps at him to focus, reminding him they're going live soon. She tells him over 200,000 people bought tickets to watch him. As the stream begins, Shev and his guild enter a dungeon, smiling as he calls everyone to prepare. Back at the Raiders Association in Castle Figus, Herkin slams the table in frustration over the lack of missions. He considers taking a break when the old mission man approaches, recognizing him as the one who cleared Mount Bama Cave. The man introduces himself as Hotan and asks to speak privately. He claims to have heard about the mutant encountered in the cave. Herkin is confused, recalling only a strange werewolf. Hotan explains that monsters exposed to corrupted power are becoming unstable, and a bounty has been issued. Before Hotan can finish, Herkin grabs his arm and says he wants in. He assumes it's a hidden quest and doesn't hesitate. Hotan tries to caution him, saying it's too early, but Herkin insists. Relenting, Hotan tells him to seek someone named Ahimri east of Castle Figus and offers a letter of recommendation. A new quest is created, Himri's Teachings, with a skill book as the reward. Leaving the association, Herkin shouts in excitement. He starts wondering if this is really happening and whether he actually received a quest to become a Him student. He knows Him is one of the 7 disciples of the Grand Mage Boon, an NPC every mage wants to meet because of the rare skill books he provides. Realizing how valuable this opportunity is, he runs off in high spirits, assuming it came from the Rising Star title combined with the corrupted count progression. If things go well, he won't need to worry about video material for a long time. He stops suddenly, remembering something he still needs to do. Entering a forest, he uses Bone Fragment to summon Little Bone. Once it appears, he checks the rewards from the last battle, starting with the werewolf skull he kept. The system asks if he wants to use it to enhance the skeleton warrior, and he agrees. The skeleton gains werewolf traits and additional toughness. He then equips the corrupted tracker necklace, and the system applies its effects, boosting all his stats and class-related attributes. Satisfied with his preparations, he throws 2 more bone fragments onto the ground, summoning 2 additional skeleton warriors. Little Bone looks confused as Herkin explains they'll now fight as a unit and need to get along. As they move on, Little Bone bristles at no longer being the only one. Before long, They encounter a level 25 forest bear. Herkin dodges its attacks until it charges, and he snaps his fingers, ordering a summon to take aggro. The skeleton leaps in, but is smashed aside, bones shattered. Irritated, Herkin criticizes the obvious approach and orders it to attack from the blind spot. The second attempt ends the same way. He snaps, pointing out the mistake, while the third skeleton steps forward and strikes a ridiculous pose, briefly amusing him. It attacks next, only to be swatted aside, its head knocked off. After defeating the bear himself, Herkin questions whether his summons have any sense at all. He tells them to reattach their heads and tries to explain positioning, drawing a simple diagram and emphasizing blind spots. Their blank reactions only frustrate him further, and he gives up on the explanation. Even so, he notes that his skill rank has increased and that he can now summon 3 skeletons thanks to the necklace. The problem is coordination. They don't fight as a team, cost far more mana, and perform worse than before. Reaching level 20 was his goal, but this makes combat footage unlikely for a while. Accepting it, he orders the summons to get up and follow him to Castle Bangu, deciding they'll train along the way. He had planned to let his summons handle the fighting, but it's clear he'll stay on the front line. He concludes that he's in real trouble. Later, he returns to the Raiders Association in Castle Bangu. The place is packed, and when a player exits a room, the crowd swarms, eager to learn what quest was taken. Herkin slips inside, comparing them to scavengers who rely on others instead of their own effort. A bald man asks if he has a good quest and suggests teaming up. Herkin brushes him off and heads upstairs, reminding himself that no one can find out he's on a him quest. At the top of the stairs, he hands over Hotan's letter of recommendation. The staff member checks it, confirms the details, and politely directs him to the second floor. Behind him, players crowd in, claiming they're in a party with him, but he ignores them. As he walks, he wonders what kind of reward a Himri might give, assuming a hidden quest would offer something worthwhile, and thinking this could be the start of a long-term connection. Inside the room, he asks to enter and is met with a chaotic sight, books piled everywhere. A man buried in the mess asks who he is, noting that no meeting was scheduled. This is a Himri. Herkin introduces himself and hands over the letter. A Himri reads it, remarks that he seems to be a novice dark mage, and assumes he must be unusually capable for his level. Herkin brushes it off as luck. A Himri moves straight to the reward, handing over skill books. Herkin receives bone armor and Helm of Madness, and thanks him for the rare items. A Himri says that concludes their business and tells him to be careful on the way back. The system announces the quest completion. Herkin finds it strange and asks him to wait, questioning why it ended so quickly. He insists he didn't come all this way just for a couple of skills, and says he'll do anything for another chance. A Himri takes his hand and asks if he truly means it. When Herkin agrees, a Himri gives him a new quest, Nest's Egg, with the simple objective of retrieving an egg and no listed reward. Herkin is left stunned, feeling tricked. Elsewhere in the city, a heavily equipped knight walks through the streets, drawing wary glances. He heads toward the Raiders Association, wondering if that's where the masked player might be. After leaving a Himri's room, Herkin feels deflated, questioning how an NPC could scam him like this. He had expected something tied to the main storyline, not a rewardless errand. As he moves through the area, players suddenly surround him, pressing him about the quest he received. He panics, considering his options, when a knight appears and releases a powerful aura that sends the players flying. The knight asks for a private conversation. Suspicious, Herkin tells him to leave him alone, but the knight leans in and quietly calls him by his masked name, asking for cooperation. Startled, Herkin follows him into an alley. The knight apologizes for the disturbance and removes his helmet. Despite the high-end gear, Herkin doesn't recognize him. The knight asks if he really is Heiho Mask. Herkin pretends ignorance, insisting he has no idea who that is and demanding to know why he was dragged there. The knight presses, mentioning a Himri and the quest, but Herkin keeps up the act, even provoking him, all while unsure who he's dealing with. After a pause, the knight reaches out, apologizes for the misunderstanding, and withdraws. Relieved, Herkin accepts and walks away. Once he's gone, the knight speaks with another hidden player, concluding the protagonist isn't who they're looking for, noting his carelessness with his watch. They discuss continuing to monitor a Himri and the Nest's Egg quest, acknowledging its importance to the main storyline. As they part, they're unaware that Herkin has realized there were two of them. He concludes they're part of something larger and far from ordinary, even as he wonders who they really are. The next day, Herkin is still unsettled, convinced there's more to the Nest's egg quest. He reasons that those players must have already seen his video and known Heiho Mask would receive a him request, which is why they let him go so easily. It seems they don't care who Heiho Mask really is. That leaves him stuck, unsure whether continuing the quest will draw them back again, and aware that avoiding it would stall his videos. He wonders why these people keep interfering with his life, especially when dealing with Solon alone is already enough. Meanwhile, Solon logs out of the game. Her secretary, Park Suji, praises her performance and asks about the guild entrance exam. Solon dismisses the candidates as useless and asks for updates on the home mask. Suji hesitates, mentioning he might have joined another guild, which enrages Solon. Suji quickly backtracks and promises to investigate further. Solon orders her not to return without answers. As she changes clothes, she asks about the chairman, then notes that his silence means Warlord is doing well. She mentions how he tried to force a marriage after learning she played the game, then instructs Suji to gather new candidates by the next morning. Suji is left thinking her boss has a terrible personality. Later, in a dungeon, Herkin surveys the lizard swamp, recalling it faintly. Since Himri is in Castle Bangu and the quest involves an egg, this region seems the most likely option. Calling a summon, he notes the monsters here are high-level and decides to test the Helm of Madness. After activating it, his summon transforms, eyes burning with violent energy and releasing a powerful aura that excites him. Wanting to test it, he orders the summon to attack him, forgetting the warning about loss of sanity. The summon charges with bloodlust, but Herkin punches it away and scolds it, then checks the skill again, finding no issue. A level 30 lizard man emerges from a swamp. Herkin turns calmly, activates the skill again, and the system confirms the Helm of Madness is boosting the summon's attributes. He also uses bone armor, equipping a chest plate. With the summons prepared, he orders them to attack. The lizard men are forced on the defensive, and one summon strikes from behind with a decisive blow. The system announces the defeat of 3 lizard men, significant experience gained, and 2 level-ups. Herkin laughs in excitement and decides that for the next week, they'll hunt monsters while searching for the egg, moving on if needed. From a distance, a woman watches. Confident in her looks and used to things coming easily, she considers how to introduce herself, then slips in the mud and falls into a puddle. Furious, she curses the place, recalling how one of her followers brought her there to help her level, only to die and leave her stranded. Watching from a distance, she knows the monsters in the area are strong and the terrain is rough. As she studies the protagonist more closely, an idea forms. Maybe she's found herself a new slave. She makes a noise on purpose, stumbles into view, and collapses, calling for help. She claims she hurt her legs while escaping monsters, putting on a pitiful expression, certain the fool in front of her will rush to help. Herkin doesn't even stop. He turns away and keeps walking. She's left stunned, shouting after him in disbelief. To him, it's just another lunatic. Furious at being ignored, she watches him continue on, clearing monsters effortlessly with his summons. After a while, he notices she's still following him. He realizes he's been ignoring her to avoid wasting time, but she refuses to leave. Remembering the players who tried to deceive him before, his irritation builds. If they're in the game, they should play properly. He decides to deal with it. He turns around and asks what she wants. She approaches and says she dropped her sword in the swamp while hunting, asking for help finding it. He agrees, but makes it clear that once the sword is found, she's to disappear. She thanks him repeatedly, convinced she's fooled another idiot. They search the area and eventually locate the sword. She thanks him again, but he reminds her of her promise. He orders his summons to retrieve it. While laughing and thanking him, she takes advantage of his distraction and attacks. Herkin reacts instantly, telling her she's slow. He grabs her clothes and throws her high into the air, sending her crashing into the swamp. She emerges screaming curses, threatening that her bodyguards will hunt him down. He laughs and tells her to look behind her. She turns and finds herself surrounded by lizard men. As she struggles, Herkin tells her she has a long way to go before she can fool him and that he saw through her from the start. He turns away, saying she's already wasted enough of his time, and calls his summons to leave. He stops when he sees them copying the woman's flirtatious behavior. Furious, he orders them to stop learning nonsense or he'll erase them. A system message appears, announcing that player Ilya has been eliminated. He's surprised to receive points despite not killing her directly. Remembering her threat about bodyguards, he assumes they never existed. Somewhere else, a group watches the footage in silence, furious. Later in the swamp, an injured player is pinned by a sword. The man curses Herkin, calling him an enemy of Lady Ilya. Herkin asks why he's going this far for her, wondering if he thinks avenging her will earn him anything. The player suddenly laughs, shouting that it's because he loves her. Herkin kills him without hesitation, finding the whole thing absurd. Thinking back on Ilya, he realizes her threat wasn't entirely empty, but that only means shameless people keep coming after him. With no missions available, the situation almost excites him. He briefly considers hunting her down again, then decides it would only cause more trouble. The system notifies him of new loot. Another unowned watch, 5,000 gold coins, goblin leather boots, and a rare promise necklace. Realizing how valuable it might be, he laughs and thanks the idiots, thinking that tonight, at least, he'll finally eat well. A man suddenly shouts that the protagonist is right there. Herkin turns and finds himself facing several warriors. Realizing how many there are, he starts running, wondering how so many people could be obsessed with that woman. After a short distance, he stops and summons his minions. One of the pursuers recognizes the skeletons and lets his friend handle them. The man uses a strange skill and cuts through the summons with ease. A system notice confirms a skeleton's destruction, and Herkin realizes they're higher level. Outnumbered, he boosts his speed and escapes, swearing to deal with them later. After running for a while, he slows down and senses something off. The surroundings feel different, darker than the rest of the swamp. He realizes he's never seen this area before and suspects he's found what he's been looking for. Behind him, the pursuers search frantically. They spot what looks like skeletons ahead, only to find them dancing on something strange. As one of them charges in anger, a massive creature rises from the swamp and devours him. The others freeze in terror. It's a level 40 lizard dragon, the swamp's boss. Herkin watches from hiding and realizes this must be the nest tied to his quest. Normally, the boss shouldn't be here, but a related quest can force it to respawn. That means this place really is part of Himri's task. The thought angers him, knowing he was sent here at level 20, but he also knows the players around him have drawn the boss's attention. As some shout to retreat, Herkin appears briefly, summons his skeletons, and uses the chaos to escape. While the boss and players clash, he runs straight for the nest, convinced it will be empty. Inside, he searches desperately until he finds something that barely looks like an egg, more like a stone. A system notice warns another skeleton has fallen. Realizing the boss is returning, he grabs the object and flees. Back at the battlefield, bodies litter the ground. He approaches one injured player, casually takes his watch, and warns him that he's been holding back until now. He tells them that next time, neither they nor that woman will be spared, then leaves at full speed. Deciding to profit from the situation, he posts the lizard dragon's location on the forum for sale. Later, he returns to Himri and places the object on the table, hoping it's correct. After examining it, Himri confirms it's what he wanted and thanks him. He comments that Herkin was faster than expected. Nervous, Herkin asks if there's another task. Himri explains that the item was found near corrupted monsters and was temporarily named the Stone of Corruption. Herkin is stunned. He realizes this is a key origin item tied to the main quest. The players who tested him weren't after him personally. They were making sure no one interfered with the main storyline. Only now does he understand that what he thought was a scam was actually part of something much bigger. Himri apologizes, saying he knew the mission would be too much for a rookie, but explains he needed to test Herkin's willpower against an unknown threat. He asks if Herkin is ready to fight corruption. Herkin clenches his fists, convinced this is his chance, and declares he'll devote everything to it. Himri immediately refuses, leaving him confused. He explains that the monsters are too strong and that he won't entrust such a task to someone so inexperienced. Just as Herkin reels from that, Himri changes his tone and says that if Herkin were to ask the great mage to accept him as a disciple, he might be willing to guide him. Herkin leaves the room without a word. Soon after, the system notifies him that the nest egg quest is complete. He has obtained the title of a Himri's disciple, and Himri's Teachings Part 2 has begun. The new objective is to reach level 40 before meeting a Himri again, with a corrupted tracker skill book as the reward. Remembering how he had to act earlier, Herkin fumes, convinced a Himri is a con artist. Elsewhere, a raid concludes without casualties. The guild captain thanks the knight who assisted them, admitting the clear was possible because of him. When the captain offers extra payment, the knight refuses, saying he doesn't break rules. As he heads to the nest to collect items, he assumes the stone of corruption will still be there. Jumping in, he realizes it's gone and erupts in rage, cursing Heiho Mask. Meanwhile, Herkin is logged out, staring at his phone. He finally decides to treat himself and converts his earnings, only to watch debts, rent, and bills drain the account down to almost nothing. Furious and exhausted, he wonders why nothing ever works out. A message from Romani arrives, asking if he quit. He hesitates, thinking about the trouble chasing him, then snaps. Hungry and frustrated, he decides he doesn't care anymore. He logs back into the game and enters the Forest of the Dead. The system confirms the location. He remarks that the place is always unsettling, but perfect for grinding and drawing attention. Calling his summons together, he introduces a new teammate, a skeleton mage given by a Himri, and puts it in charge of strategy. He notes the skill's heavy mana cost, but strong potential. Ahead, hands emerge from the ground as level 33 skeletons rise. His summons hesitate, unsettled by enemies that look just like them. Herkin urges them forward, reminding them that undead monsters are different once the fight begins. Seeing his summons cowering, he snaps at them to stop wasting time. With a flick of his fingers, he orders them forward. Boney charges first and strikes a skeleton, only to freeze when the enemy keeps moving as if nothing happened. Herkin confirms that normal attacks don't work. He pulls out a warhammer that boosts strength and smashes the skeleton's skull, shattering it completely. He follows through, sending the remains flying, then turns to his summons and tells them that all they have to do is crush the skull. Instead of understanding, his summons clutch their own heads in fear. He ignores it and declares the goal: 100 skeletons in 100 minutes for a timed attack video. With a chilling smile, he makes it clear failure isn't an option. That's enough to send them rushing off to hunt. As time passes, the system reports multiple kills and level gains. He praises them, noting they adapted faster than expected, and feels confident the video will turn out well. Then he senses something wrong. A massive level 35 skeleton warrior appears. He recognizes it as a rare spawn and immediately retreats with his summons, knowing it might revive in bone form. Charging ahead, he thinks about food for the first time in a while, only to narrowly avoid a devastating axe swing. Shaken, he coordinates with his summons, knocks the warrior down, and finishes it when the skeleton mage's fire ignites its bones. The system announces the kill and a large experience gain. Breathing out, he decides the footage alone should be worth it. Before he can relax, the system issues new warnings. A field boss has detected intruders. A huge magic circle forms, and a colossal golden skeleton emerges. He recognizes it instantly as the Forest of the Dead's boss, infamous for killing rookies. He knows defeating it would be a jackpot, but as he calls his summons, they vanish. The system informs him they were dispelled due to lack of mana. He's alone. With no choice left, he activates his slot and equips his battle armor. He charges first. The golden skeleton begins casting, unleashing relentless attacks that force him to dodge non-stop. One it would mean death. Realizing he can't let it cast freely, he strikes its palm and delays the spell. He notices its hands are tied to its magic and decides they're the key. Suddenly, the boss changes. The system warns that it's evaluating him. A wave of dark energy erupts, bombarding the field. He barely avoids one strike and is hurled across the ground by another. As he struggles back up, he realizes the attack patterns feel different from what he remembers. Whether it's a hidden phase or a rebalance, he can't be sure. With no summons, fading memories, and a towering enemy before him, he focuses on surviving each strike, inching closer while searching desperately for a blind spot. He's suddenly grabbed as the boss's arm closes around him. Pulled in close, he stares straight into its roaring face and thinks he's finished. As it begins channeling another attack, he wonders how many patterns it still has left, then smiles. He still has a trump card. He activates Demonic Curse, and the system announces a reduction in the boss's stats. Using that opening, he breaks free and rushes forward, remarking that the boss handed him the chance himself. He gathers power into his fist and drives it straight into the golden skeleton's face. The impact detonates, cracks spreading through its body as its form collapses. The system announces the defeat of the golden skeleton, a massive experience gain, gold, the title Skeleton Slayer, and a level up. He exhales in relief and deactivates his slot, knowing he wouldn't have lasted much longer. Checking his status, he sees he's reached level 36 with 9 titles and greatly increased stats. The excitement fades into realism as he realizes mana is becoming a serious limitation. His strength-focused build worked while his summons were present, but without them, it's risky. He has no money for new gear, but decides not to dwell on it. For now, he'll send the video to Romani, push for level 40, and reward himself with beef ramen later. When Romani watches the footage, she first explodes in frustration, then suddenly bursts into excitement. She realizes he defeated a stronger boss without taking a hit and with no rehearsal. The quality is so high it barely needs editing. Grinning, she settles on a title and decides to call it Solo Emperor. Later, at the Banga Castle Adventurers Association, Herkin returns to a Himri. The NPC comments on his condition, and Herkin tells him to just hand over the reward. The system announces the completion of a Himri's Teachings Part 2 and grants the skill book Osteology. He immediately understands its value, boosting skeleton stats, reducing mana costs, and allowing an extra summon. He thanks a Himri repeatedly. A Himri then reveals the corrupted tracker ring and explains how it synchronizes with the stone and necklace. Seeing its effects, Herkin is ecstatic, knowing how rare it is. When he reaches for it, a Himri pulls it back, teasing him and telling him to take it if he can. Laughing, Herkin activates his slot and charges. Sometime later, outside the association, he's exhausted but in possession of the ring. He reflects that the old man nearly killed him, but it was worth it. A Himri mentions a missing agent named Miggy in the Suryu Castle area. Herkin decides to level up more before heading there. His watch suddenly fills with messages from Romani urging him to check the video. Opening it, he freezes as he sees millions of views, floods of praise, and donations pouring in. He sinks to the ground, staring at the numbers, then starts thinking about food. Steak cuts run through his mind one after another as he realizes he can finally eat whatever he wants. He thinks about the jackpot he just hit. He expected good reactions, but not this overwhelming. As he considers logging off, his watch beeps again. A massive donation comes in, along with a message explaining they've tried contacting him repeatedly. It's from the recruitment leader of the Thunder Hunters Guild, asking for a chance to talk. Herkin's mood turns sour. He immediately recognizes it as Colin's guild, the same one that expelled him in his previous life. Memories resurface of their relentless persistence back then, and seeing it happen again infuriates him. He rejects the offer outright, saying he wouldn't join them no matter what. The familiarity of the situation frustrates him even more, recalling how friends once told him he was lucky to be chased by such a powerful guild and how much money he could have made. He remembers refusing anyway, believing his own guild would rise and that he didn't need their wealth. Snapping out of it, he slaps his face and tells himself it's not time to get drunk on money. There's too much to do. He summons his skeletons and bluntly reminds them that he carried the golden skeleton fight alone. Training starts again. They need to move better, fight cleaner, and not repeat past failures. For a moment, he sees familiar faces in them, then realizes they're not his old friends, and that makes him smile. This time will be different. He declares their next destination, Suryu Castle, and decides they'll train on the way. The training is simple, run non-stop. Anyone who falls behind gets punished. Terrified, the summons sprint at full speed as they head out. Elsewhere, Syl stands among defeated monsters, deep in thought. Hatch approaches and reminds her of an upcoming meeting. When asked about the corrupted count, Hatch admits there's been no progress. Syl bristles, furious that the Hydra Guild took the lead. She dismisses the upcoming meeting with the top guilds as pointless and walks off, leaving Hatch uneasy. In the aftermath, a brief recap settles in. Herkin's WT video explodes overnight, bringing him money and attention. On the brink of losing himself, the source of his past suffering reignites his resolve. He repays his debt in full, surprising the loan shark, then spends the rest on rare skill books, leaving his account empty again. It still stings, but he pushes forward. He learns the new skills immediately. Skin grafting strengthens his defense by attaching monster remains. He tests it using skeleton materials and confirms its effectiveness. Curse of Sloth follows, slowing enemies at the cost of mana, and he experiments with it. Finally, he learns Golem summoning, the skill he wanted most. The massive summon exceeds expectations. He bonds with it, activates copy mode, and realizes that syncing its power with his own movements could make it absurdly effective. The golem suddenly freezes in place, leaving the summon stunned and driving Herkin to question whether the skill bugged out. Then it copies one of his earlier movements with perfect timing, silencing everyone. He realizes the delay was just synchronization, laughs, and starts wondering what to test next. Elsewhere, leaders of several top guilds gather. Nurgle of Ares opens the meeting, noting how rare it is for top guilds to sit together. Shev of the Red Bulls jokes about familiar faces while Berg of Big Smile fumes, and Syl of the Thunder Hunters stays silent. Nurgle reveals that Hydra has identified the corrupted Count and plans a final raid within a month. Shev is shocked, Berg explodes in anger, and Syl shuts him down with pressure. A brief standoff follows before Nurgle proposes an anti-Hydra alliance. No infighting, full information sharing until the corrupted Count is resolved. Reluctantly, they agree. Afterward, Syl reflects on how humiliating it feels to rely on others, but accepts that lying low is necessary. She orders her people to monitor Hydra closely. Back in the game at Suryu Castle, Herkin is told to investigate Agent Miggy's disappearance in Boru Forest. He immediately recognizes it as a level 70 zone and objects, but is warned that refusing means losing his corrupted tracker status. After leaving, he checks the quest details. Find Miggy within 30 days, or lose the title and access to the main quest. Panic sets in. He realizes he's accepted content far beyond his level and can't afford to fail, yet going there now would mean certain death. As he struggles with the dilemma, he overhears players discussing Hydra's progress and how no other guild has even begun the main quest. The idea that the story could end without him unsettles him, then sparks something else. He glances at his watch and smiles, realizing he may not need to go to Boru Forest yet. Elsewhere, two watchers monitor a massive castle, relieved that their long surveillance is ending. One asks his partner, Nadal of Hydra, about the rewards awaiting them. Nadal tells him not to get ahead of himself. Nadal warns that their mission isn't over and that they must continue monitoring the corrupted Count's castle without drawing attention. Before he can say more, a player rushes in shouting that he found Nadal. It's Kim, rank 3 of the Red Bulls, greeting him casually. Nadal, barely holding back his anger, demands to know why a Red Bull is there. Kim replies that he came to hunt a high-level boss, and jokingly suggests that must be their reason too. Nadal plays along, but Kim's teasing only makes him angrier before he leaves, tapping his watch to report that Hydra's 8th in command is indeed there. Shev and Yell receive the message and realize the anonymous tip about the corrupted Count's location was real. They question the motive, but decide they can't ignore it. Kim asks to start a fight to stall Hydra, but Yell orders him to pull back. Before he can move, an explosion erupts. When the dust clears, Kim finds a sword at his throat. Thunder Princess Howie of the Thunder Hunters demands answers. Elsewhere, Herkin watches his golem battle a massive bear while his skeletons look on. He checks his watch, puzzled by the silence. He knows the only way to avoid Boru Forest is to end the chapter itself. Since the corrupted Count's defeat would close all related quests, he spreads the information to multiple guilds, excluding Colons. Still, no one responds. Then the system announces Hydra has begun a live stream. He pauses the fight, silencing the bear with a punch, and watches. The host announces Hydra will attempt the corrupted Count raid in 3 days. Herkin laughs, satisfied. If Hydra succeeds, his problem disappears. 3 days later, the system announces Hydra's raid has failed and all members were wiped out. Herkin explodes in disbelief, cursing their recklessness and realizing he may need another plan. Soon after, the Red Bulls start a live stream. Shev the Slayer confirms Hydra's failure and declares that the Red Bulls will accept the challenge. His guild roars in response. Watching, Herkin wonders if even Shev's guild is truly enough to face the corrupted count. He's caught off guard when Shev announces that the raid will include their partner, the Thunder Hunters, led by the Queen of Thunder, Sil. Realizing it's Cholan, Herkin feels conflicted. Earlier at the Red Bulls camp, Shev had questioned why Sil requested a meeting. She makes it clear they're still allies, not enemies. When Shev mentions one of his men getting beaten up, Sil brushes it off as a greeting, even teasing Kim. Getting serious, Shev asks for the real reason she came. Sil explains that information about the corrupted count has leaked to several top guilds, and it's obvious someone has been stirring the waters. Shev admits it's true, but says they don't know who started it. Sil mocks Hydra's chances, saying they rushed the raid and will fail. She proposes cooperation instead, offering Shev the first kill. Though suspicious, Shev accepts. As the raid begins, Sil proves her strength in battle. The corrupted count mocks them and unleashes endless waves of monsters. The fight drags on, pushing the alliance to its limits. Shev charges forward to clear a path, and Sil follows. The corrupted count counters with hidden attacks, striking from unexpected angles and injuring her midair. After a brief pause, she recovers, breaks free, and lands a decisive blow. The system confirms the corrupted count's defeat by the Red Bulls and Thunder Hunters. Watching the announcement, Herkin is stunned but quickly dismisses it. He only needed the corrupted count defeated, regardless of who did it. He tells himself this won't be the end for Sil and that, in the end, he'll be the one standing above everyone. Later, in the Bulkus Mountains dungeon, Herkin reflects on who he is now and why he's here. A sudden roar snaps him back as a herd of wild boars charges toward him, forcing him to flee. Earlier, he had reached the mountain entrance and found it sealed, knowing it was locked until Chapter 1 ended. Once the corrupted count fell, the barrier vanished. The system announced his entry into the Bulkus Mountains and granted him a title for being the first to set foot there, boosting his stats. Excited, he called his summons and declared it his moment, only to immediately encounter level 60 wild boars. Now, vastly outmatched at level 41, he runs, realizing others will soon notice the area is open. With no choice left, he orders his summons to activate their helms and charge, but the boars overwhelm them with ease. As Herkin retreats, the system reports that his skeleton warrior has been destroyed from excessive damage. He smiles and says it was just bait. Activating Curse of Sloth, he slows the charging wild boars and moves in, telling them they won't be moving for a while. Drawing his sword, he rushes forward, only to slip on a banana peel and crash face first in front of the beasts. Another peel drops onto his head. Furious, he demands to know what's going on. Above him, a monkey laughs from a tree branch. It's a level 50 armored monkey, infamous for tormenting players. Herkin snaps, telling it to wait, but the system warns that the sloth curse is worn off. He panics, then a sudden flash erupts nearby, shattering a boar's head. From the trees, a crossbow fires again and again, wiping out the remaining boars in moments. Stunned, Herkin watches as an old man approaches and asks if he's hurt. Elsewhere, at Siru Castle, two adventurers notice a knight in distinctive armor. A mage reports that no guild knows who leaked the corrupted count's information, and that Heiho Mask is only posting ordinary hunting videos. The knight orders his companion to keep searching for the informant, vowing they'll pay for disrupting the balance. Back in the Bulkus Mountains, the old man brings Herkin to a humble cabin and asks if he's truly a Himri's disciple. Herkin realizes he's met Ma Wong, a key figure of Chapter 2. Ma Wong urges him to leave the area, warning that it's full of danger. But Herkin explains the corrupted count is already dead and that he's tracking lingering corruption. Ma Wong admits he has suspicions but no proof and asks for help gathering evidence. The system grants Herkin new titles for First Contact and Initiation, boosting his attributes. He accepts immediately. A new quest appears, requiring him to defeat 50 monsters in the Bulkus Mountains. Energized, he heads out, deciding to avoid the strongest monsters for now. Then he remembers the armored monkey and decides that's where he'll start. Later in the mountains, players keep slipping on banana peels as the monkey laughs from above. As it prepares to strike another victim, Herkin appears behind it and calmly says he finally found it. The monkey turns, and without hesitation, Herkin draws his sword and charges. The armored monkey slips past every attack, evading with ease before suddenly fleeing at full speed. Herkin chases, growing more irritated as branches and trunks block his swings. He stops on a branch, hurls his sword, and deliberately misses. The monkey laughs until the golem appears and smashes it with a single blow. The system confirms Herkin as the first to hunt an armored monkey. Satisfied, he decides to farm more. Elsewhere, cameras flash as Shev and Sil accept congratulations for clearing the Chapter 1 boss. Sil gives a polite statement, but off-camera her mood is cold. She admits they still need Heiho Mask's abilities and orders Hawi to call Hatch, saying there's something they must hunt. Back in the mountains, Herkin's weapon finally breaks. With no money for replacements, he turns to gem farming, knowing armored monkeys can drop valuable ones. Hours pass without a single drop. Frustrated, he pushes on, convinced the next one will fall. A heavily geared warrior approaches and calls him Heiho Mask. Herkin notices the man's equipment and level immediately. The warrior introduces himself as Kyote and challenges him to a duel. Herkin dismisses him and turns away until Kyote offers 5,000 gold. Herkin accepts instantly. Kyote strips down to make it fair, claiming he wants no excuses. Herkin scoffs, but Kyote attacks without waiting. Herkin dodges repeatedly as Kyote presses harder, demanding he fight back. Kyote activates a booster skill and lands a hit, sending Herkin flying. On the ground, Herkin realizes Kyote is stronger than he looks and that fighting head-on is a mistake. He stands as Kyote taunts him to go all out, and Herkin settles into position, already forming a different plan. Kyote charges again, boasting that he will prove he is stronger than Heiho Mask, and activates his booster once more. Herkin throws dirt into his eyes, sweeps his legs, and drops him hard. He explains that raw strength can be overcome with technique, then follows with a kick and an uppercut that sends Kyote crashing into a tree. Kyote rages and calls him a coward, but Herkin dismisses it, saying survival matters more than pride. Herkin activates skin grafting with armored monkey hide, and the system confirms the enhancement. Kyote panics as Herkin advances. He begs for mercy, and Herkin redirects his attack at the last moment, obliterating the tree beside Kyote's head. Shaken, Kyote hands over the promised gold and his sword. Herkin recognizes it as the hero orc sword and questions why he is giving it up. Kyote admits his obsession with popularity blinded him, and says the fight made him realize what strength really is. Herkin reacts by kicking him away and telling him to leave. Kyote departs bruised but energized, vowing to return someday. Watching him go, Herkin smiles, amused, then laughs as he examines the new sword, satisfied that he no longer needs to hunt armored monkeys. He briefly considers hunting more anyway, but his summons stop him. Later, after reporting back, Ma Wong reviews the results of the hunt and praises Herkin's progress. Noting his distracted expression, Wong explains the next task. Near the mountain peak, armored warrior bears have appeared. If Herkin can discover where they are getting their weapons, it will help reveal the source of the corruption. Herkin rises and sums it up simply. Wong wants him to defeat a warrior bear and bring back one of its weapons. Wong cautions him that even guards struggle to face them alone and suggests finding help, but Herkin says he already knows how to handle warrior bears. Soon after, he reaches the mountain area and calls his summons, excited to spend some money. He opens the auction window and buys the skeletal snake shoulder guard, boots, gloves, and helmet. The system reports large boosts to defense, mana, and strength, along with reduced mana consumption, and confirms he spent most of his gold. Unable to contain himself, Herkin celebrates wildly. He then purchases several skill books in one go, burning through nearly all his remaining funds. Confident, he thinks this should be enough for a warrior bear. When one of his summons taps his shoulder, he realizes he bought nothing for them. The system confirms he's broke. His summon's mood turns ominous, but before he can explain, monsters appear. Without orders, the summons rush in and slaughter them. Relieved, Herkin watches as they finish off a wild boar and tells them to hurry so he can equip them on the move. A sudden attack strikes the boar. Several players appear, claiming the area belongs to the Apollo Guild. They introduce themselves arrogantly, but Herkin attacks immediately, dropping all three and dismissing them as nuisances. As he leaves, one of them reports the incident. Not long after, the Apollo Guild leader orders that Herkin be brought in, furious at the disrespect. Reaching the warrior bear territory, Herkin finds his summons posing theatrically and snaps them back into line. He reminds them the warrior bear is level 70 with 3 phases and that defeating it will put them ahead in the main quest. They salute just as a massive roar shakes the area. The warrior bear emerges. Herkin equips his battle gear and declares this quest his. Elsewhere, Hatch of the Thunder Hunters wanders the mountains, grumbling about being sent to track a rookie, effortlessly burning down a wild boar king and hoping Heiho Mask appears soon. Facing the warrior bear, Herkin remembers how his guild once failed repeatedly against it. This time, failure would cost him his lead. He steadies himself, knowing he must strip the bear's armor and strike its weak points. As the bear charges, Herkin smiles and signals his summons, relying on his new strength modifications as he moves in to meet it. His speed spikes too far, sending him flying past the warrior bear while it and the summons stare. Before he can recover, the bear turns and wipes out his skeletons. Furious, Herkin checks his leg strength modification and realizes the boost is too extreme to control. He charges again, slams straight into the bear, rips part of its armor, then gets smashed into a rock. The hit proves the armor can be broken, but controlling his movement is still a problem. The bear attacks again. Herkin dodges and throws a bone bomb into its face. The explosion barely slows it. Realizing direct combat won't work, he resummons his skeletons and brings out the golem. The bear clashes with the golem, and Herkin reinforces it with hardening. With the bear restrained, the skeletons rush in, but their attacks only enrage it further. Herkin orders the skeletal mage to finish it. The flames catch both the bear and Herkin, making him snap at his summon. The bear roars, activating Battle Cry and restoring much of its damage, then charges again. Herkin laughs, abandons all strategy, and begins hurling bone bombs nonstop. Explosions engulf the area until the bear finally collapses. The system confirms the kill, rewards experience, gold, and completes Wong's quest. Looking at his shaking hand, Herkin realizes this was the same enemy his old guild failed against repeatedly. Now he beat it alone. He congratulates his summons and declares the extermination complete, striking a pose. When they mutter that he didn't fight properly, he explodes and yells at them to shut up. Elsewhere, Ballista sits alone in a tavern, exhausted and frustrated after days of searching the mountains without finding Heiho Mask. With videos spreading and crowds coming, he feels the task slipping away. His watch rings, it's Sil. She tells him she understands the mission was unreasonable and says she's sending Hahi to assist. Before he can respond, an explosion tears through the tavern wall. As Hatch turns in surprise, Sil states that the two will work together to find Heiho Mask. Hawi, the Princess of Thunder, storms through the hole, furious, blaming Hatch for dragging her there. Stunned, Hatch despairs at his situation. Elsewhere, Herkin notes that Bolkas has grown crowded and that a village has even formed, realizing most players now see it as the main search area. He moves quickly through the trees toward Wong until he notices 3 players approaching, their clothes resembling those he saw earlier. Expecting trouble, he tells them to attack, but they run straight past him shouting for help. Confused, he turns just as they are suddenly attacked, his face getting scratched in the chaos. 2 figures appear, Hawi and the Mage Hatch. Recognizing the Thunder Hunter's emblem, Herkin is startled when Hawi points her sword at him and demands to know if he is Heiho Mask. He immediately recalls who they are and how dangerous they were before his regression. Assuming they are here to recruit him, he hides his thoughts and climbs down, pretending ignorance and playing dumb. He internally decides to keep acting clueless since they have no proof. Hawi presses harder, accusing him of lying and pointing out that no one could cross the Bolkas Mountains without hearing of Heiho Mask after his video reached 20 million views. She notes that his hood looks suspiciously similar, making Herkin uneasy at her sharpness. Hatch intervenes, scolding Hawi for destroying the inn and attacking people indiscriminately, warning her about the guild's reputation. The two argue loudly until Hawi, visibly annoyed, mutters an apology and walks away. Hatch apologizes to Herkin for her behavior and wishes him well. As Herkin relaxes, thinking he avoided trouble, Hawi suddenly rushes him and punches him into a rock. Hatch panics, restraining her and shouting at her recklessness. Herkin protests that they assaulted an innocent player, then calmly announces he will file a public complaint accusing the Thunder Hunters of massacring newbies. Hatch hurriedly apologizes and offers compensation, handing over gold. Herkin accepts the 1,000 gold and drops the issue. As Hatch drags Howie away, Herkin knows the situation was humiliating, but also necessary. Provoking them now would be disastrous, so enduring a little longer is the only choice. As they walk away, Hatch scolds Howie for constantly causing trouble and ignoring how important image management is for a major guild. Howie, genuinely puzzled, says people should instinctively dodge attacks. Hatch asks if she's seriously blaming others for not dodging her punch. She insists it was just that man, saying he looked annoyed, as if he expected to take the hit. Hatch begs her to stay quiet. She tells him to shut up and calls him a loser. Meanwhile, Herkin returns to Wong's house and hands over a piece of the warrior bear's armor. Wong says this confirms something unusual is happening and thanks him again, noting that without him, there would have been many casualties. He notices Herkin trembling and asks if he's all right. Herkin says he's fine, though he's thinking they need to move on quickly before the top guilds catch up. Wong brings out a chest and asks Herkin to choose one item. He explains that while active in the Bulkus Mountains, he marked maps of monster dens. Herkin recognizes them as treasure maps and gets excited, but before he can take one, Wong says he has another request. Herkin, irritated but unsurprised, listens as Wong explains that armed monsters have also been reported beyond Bulkus and asks him to investigate again. Herkin agrees, takes a map, and learns the destination is the Parang Forest. He reacts poorly but says nothing. Outside, Herkin exhales in frustration, knowing Parang Forest is a level 90 zone and he'll need to level up along the way. He considers Sura Canyon as a temporary hunting ground and feels confident after defeating the warrior bear. As he moves on, he's startled to see Shev the Slayer ahead, while Shev is equally surprised to see him. Elsewhere, Hatch tearfully contacts Syl, complaining he can't work with Howie. Syl laughs and listens as Hatch mentions that Red Bulls have taken over Sura Canyon and questions why they're still chasing someone who won't join them. After a moment, Syl orders them to stop tracking Heiho Mask and shift fully to the main quest. Relieved, Hatch praises her decision. After the call, Syl reflects that the strong are drawn to the strong and wonders how long Heiho Mask can keep running. Earlier, Herkin had already entered the Parang field and defeated his first level 75 monster without much trouble. With his summons steadily hunting, he gained 2 levels and reached level 62. While discussing plans to level a bit more before heading deeper, players watching from afar realized he was Heiho Mask. Soon, they surrounded him, overwhelming him with attention. Irritated, Herkin fled with his summons, realizing his warrior bear video had made him too visible, making normal hunting impossible. He decides to head toward the center of Sura Canyon, where higher levels would discourage followers. While moving, he runs into Shev again. Shev greets him warmly, commenting on how impressive his growth has been since the starting town. Herkin asks why Shev is there, and Shev explains that the Red Bulls have claimed Sura Canyon as a base for the main quest. Shev excitedly mentions wanting to meet Heiho Mask and asks if Herkin has seen his videos. Before Shev can say more, Herkin suddenly bolts, dragging his summons along and shouting apologies, insisting he doesn't know who Heiho Mask is. After running for a while, Herkin stops, frustrated and overwhelmed. He realizes both Thunder Hunters and Red Bulls are circling him, making leveling nearly impossible. As he debates abandoning the main quest, he remembers the maps from Wong. Pulling one out, he quickly identifies a marked location nearby, a rare dungeon. Reaching a waterfall, Herkin recalls that rare dungeons are usually hidden in dangerous, hard-to-reach places. Knowing the risk, he takes a breath and jumps into the lake with his summons. Underwater, his breathing time drops rapidly, but he trusts Wong's map and keeps swimming. With only a second left, he reaches a hidden passage and emerges into a dungeon. The system registers the discovery, granting him titles for uncovering a secret dungeon and exploration. Surveying the area, Herkin confirms his choice. If players are the problem, then hunting where none can follow is the answer. As they move deeper, he wonders what kind of monsters a secret dungeon might hold. A strange sound follows, and a small creature with glowing eyes appears. Staring at it, Herkin grows irritated, then notices flames forming around its body. Realizing it is an elemental monster, one of the rarest types, he becomes excited at the value of the materials it could drop. He orders his summons to attack. The creature cries out, and the ground trembles as a massive level 70 fire salamander emerges to protect it. Without hesitation, it launches flames, forcing Herkin to retreat. Seeing no alternative, he activates the Helm of Madness on Little Bone, applies bone armor, and equips the Black Orc Skull, completing the transformation into a skeleton knight. The presence alone terrifies both salamanders. In an instant, the skeleton knight cuts down the large salamander. More salamanders soon appear. Herkin lets the skeleton knight engage freely, watching as it tears through them with ease. The essence drops prove valuable, more than enough to justify the cost of strengthening the summon. Deciding this place is ideal, Herkin plans to continue hunting until all his skeletons are upgraded, then move on toward Parong Forest. An hour later, the system warns that he has discovered an instant dungeon leading to a throne room. Herkin hesitates. Entering means no retreat, and failure would lock him out for days, time he cannot afford while other guilds advance. Still, with nowhere else to go, he steps inside and warns his summons that luck is all they have now. Inside the throne room, he notices shattered knight statues marked with blade scars, suggesting a violent past. Then he sees it, a massive figure seated on a throne. As he approaches, the creature awakens, releasing overwhelming pressure. Herkin immediately orders defensive formation, but it is too late. The attack wipes out his skeleton warriors in an instant. Retreating, Herkin realizes what stands before him, a level 80 spirit knight, a monster with top-tier combat AI. Memories surface of encountering one in his past life, when even his entire guild had been annihilated at a similar level. Back then, Herkin had no choice but to give up. This time, he refuses to let that happen again. He resummons his skeleton warriors and sends them forward together. The Spirit Knight raises its massive sword and cuts down several summons, while Herkin and the others leap over the attack. He and the Skeleton Knight strike together, but the Spirit Knight blocks them with ease. One skeleton tries to attack from behind, only to find its strike useless before being crushed. The system reports its destruction. Pulling back, Herkin realizes that stabbing vital points means nothing to a Spirit Knight. Normal summons and the golem will not be enough. A memory from his past life surfaces, reminding him that he has never been the type to hesitate once a fight begins. If he cannot land critical blows, then he will wear the enemy down. He charges again, dodging attacks and striking repeatedly. At first it works, but the Spirit Knight grows faster and lands a heavy blow, drawing blood. Herkin suddenly grabs the knight's sword, laughing as if it were all an act. In that moment, the Skeleton Knight appears behind the enemy and cuts off its sword arm. The knight retreats to Herkin's side as the severed arm reforms into a spiritual blade. They press on together, leaping across shattered ground and striking from both sides. The damage begins to accumulate, but the Spirit Knight releases a surge of power and forces them back with a wave of fire. Its attacks grow heavier, more relentless. Herkin is struck and sent flying after a mistimed command, realizing too late that he let his guard down. As the Spirit Knight moves in to finish him, the Skeleton Knight steps in front of the blow. The system announces its destruction. Before vanishing, it looks back at Herkin in silent reassurance. Rage overtakes him. He hurls bone bombs, detonating them across the Spirit Knight's body, but the creature still stands. The Spirit Knight bursts through the smoke, unharmed enough to keep fighting. Herkin smiles and notes that Spirit-type monsters resist magic damage. He snaps his fingers, revealing that the earlier bombs were mixed with skeleton fragments. Activating his ultimate summoning skill, multiple skeletal constructs erupt and restrain the Spirit Knight. Herkin charges in and unleashes a final series of strikes. The system announces the Spirit Knight's defeat, awarding massive gold, a rare title, armor fragments, and experience. Herkin levels up once more, remembering how his guild once fell to this enemy. He looks at his restored summons and realizes how different things are now. He thanks them, even as they lapse into their usual antics. When he tries to leave the instant dungeon, nothing happens. Surrounded by his summons, he wonders if something else remains. A sound echoes behind him. Turning sharply, he sees a door opening and considers that it might be a randomly appearing reward room. Herkin runs toward the door in excitement, imagining rare rewards, only to be disappointed when he finds an old research record of ancient power. He immediately recognizes it as a main quest item he memorized long ago and curses the outcome. As he reacts, a light flares behind him, drawing his attention in surprise. After leaving the instant dungeon, he heads straight to the Parang Forest, confident he has leveled enough to return to the main quest. He summons his companions, now outfitted with powerful new armor. Watching their excitement, he reflects on the true reward from the room, a stolen skill that allows his own equipment to be worn by his summons, letting him strengthen them regardless of level, though at great cost. He warns them they must make it worthwhile, unaware of onlookers nearby. A group soon approaches, applauding and calling him Hey-Ho Mask. They introduce themselves theatrically as the R2 family, outlaw romantics training toward level 100 but unable to survive the Parang Forest alone. Herkin ignores them and walks off, but they persist, struggling to keep up and repeatedly asking him to slow down. Losing patience, he snaps at them to leave him alone. When they continue pressing him to join, he reacts violently, leaving them bruised on the ground and warning them never to follow him again. Afterward, the R2 family realizes they have been rejected once more. As they consider retreating, they receive news that another group is under attack nearby. Meanwhile, Herkin continues hunting, coordinating with his summons to bring down black ogres efficiently. With dozens defeated, he notes how predictable monsters feel after facing a spirit knight. Checking his quest, he grows frustrated that he still cannot find traces of armored monsters in Parang Forest and worries other top guilds are already advancing. An explosion suddenly shakes the forest. Herkin turns alert, realizing this may be what he has been looking for, and calls his summons. Elsewhere, the R2 family is struggling against armored monsters moving in formation, clearly led by an intelligent boss. Outmatched, they realize escape is their only option. Remembering how they were always abandoned when asking for help, their captain decides they will not leave others behind. He orders his partners to burn their remaining mana to create an escape route for the trapped group, then charges the monsters alone, striking fiercely and believing that holding them back is the right choice. The captain is struck down by a counterattack and left helpless as the Black Ogre prepares to finish him. At the last moment, Herkin arrives and blocks the kick, bluntly stating he is not there to help but to make sure no one steals his monsters. Without waiting, he summons his forces and orders an all-out attack. The battlefield turns chaotic as his summons overwhelm the armored ogres with speed and coordination far beyond what the R2 group expected. As the lesser ogres fall, Herkin steps forward and calls out the boss. The ground shakes as a level 80 helmet ogre emerges, radiating corrupted power. The R2 captain, being treated nearby, doubts anyone could face it alone, while another observer identifies it as a corrupted monster tied to the main quest. The ogre charges, but Herkin calmly channels power and strikes first, tearing through its armor and dropping it in a single decisive blow. The area falls silent as the system confirms the Helmet Ogre's defeat, rewards, and level up, along with the item needed to complete the mission. Herkin notes he must return to Wong to continue the main quest and briefly considers how the drops should be divided. Remembering the R2 captain's earlier resolve to protect others, he lets the matter pass. The R2 group approaches to thank him. Instead of demanding loot, they insist on proof they were present and ultimately leave all drops to Herkin without protest. He is left confused by their idea of romance, but quietly acknowledges their sincerity. As he heads back through the Parang Forest with his summons, Herkin reflects that while teaming up with people like them might be fun, it would only slow his path forward. His goal lies beyond guilds and alliances. He urges his summons onward, focused on finishing the mission and moving ahead. Elsewhere, Syl stands over a fallen warrior bear as her guild gathers around. Hatch reports that 2 top guilds have fallen into open conflict, weakening themselves. He then adds that Hey-Ho Mask has already defeated the Helmet Ogre and remains ahead in the main quest. Instead of anger, Syl smiles and orders her guild to accelerate, declaring that the Thunder Hunters will immediately advance into the next stage of the main quest. After returning to Bangu Castle, Herkin is greeted enthusiastically by Ahimri, while he himself questions why he had to come back. Ahimri explains that Hunter Wong praised Herkin's work and sent a reward. He produces the Ring of the Secret Order, which greatly boosts all attributes, recovery, and class-related stats. Herkin recalls how Wong had warned him that joining the Secret Order meant risking his life, though he had eagerly agreed, knowing this ring was the real reward. Outwardly composed, he struggles to contain his excitement. Wong had sent him back to Ahimri because Ahimri was also part of the secret order and would provide the emblem. Hirkin had expected trouble and is proven right when Ahimri refuses to hand over the ring without making him beg. After an undignified display and Ahimri's laughter, Hirkin finally receives the ring, knowing the reward is far too good to refuse. Now accepted into the secret order, Hirkin is immediately given a new mission. Ahimri sends him to a war zone, a chaotic battlefield filled with endless waves of monsters pouring in from beyond castle walls. The danger is high, but rewards scale with kill count, making it extremely lucrative. Standing before the battlefield, Hirkin reflects that he had wanted to come here before his regression, but had been held back. He decides to prepare carefully. From afar, someone observes him closely, convinced they have found Heiho Mask. Elsewhere, Apollo, master of the Apollo Guild, rages after hearing his subordinates failed and returned empty-handed. Learning that the Thunder Hunters interfered and may be trying to recruit Hirkin only fuels his anger. Convinced that Heiho Mask is acting arrogantly under the protection of top guilds, Apollo decides it is time to use another method against him. Elsewhere, Heavy Bean, an officer of the Big Smile Guild, receives a call from Apollo. He immediately senses trouble. Apollo demands that Heavy Bean teach the rising player, Heiho Mask, a lesson, furious that his guards were attacked and he was humiliated without an apology. Heavy Bean initially refuses, arguing that Big Smile cannot afford to get involved in petty conflicts. Apollo counters by threatening to withdraw his sponsorship, reminding him that it was this support that pushed Big Smile into the top 30. Cornered, Heavy Bean agrees and ends the call, torn between anger and concern for the guild's reputation. As he struggles with the decision, Cho Wurong, a reserve affiliate of Big Smile, steps forward and offers to handle the matter herself. Heavy Bean realizes that using a non-official member could avoid direct blame. Cho Wurong assures him she can handle Heiho Mask and vows to eliminate him to repay her debt. Back at the war zone, drums sound as soldiers call all participants to gather at the castle gate. Belay, captain of the castle wall administration, announces the rules. Once the gate opens, it will remain closed for 144 hours. Outside lies a lawless zone filled with monsters, and rewards will be determined by individual kill counts. He also announces a special mission to defeat the Blue Giant, a mutant boss in the war zone, with a unique skill book as the reward. The announcement stirs the crowd. Hirkin recognizes the value of such a reward and notices the tension rising among the contestants, many of whom glance at him as the strongest participant. As preparations finish, the gate opens. Hirkin immediately rushes out at full speed, leaving the others stunned by his pace. As the contestants scramble to follow, Cho Wurong suggests forming a temporary alliance. One participant dismisses her as a rookie and tries to shove her aside, only to be instantly and brutally struck down. As he collapses, Cho Wurong calmly asks why everyone looks so nervous. While the other participants hesitate, Cho Wurong calmly says their fear is because of the unique skill book. She makes it clear she has no interest in it and only wants Heiho Mask dead. If they follow her plan, she will give them the book, since none of them could obtain it on their own anyway. After a brief struggle, they agree. From atop a mountain, Hirkin watches them gather and realizes they have formed a group to target him. Annoyed, he accepts that he will have to deal with them on top of hunting monsters, then smiles and moves on. Cho Wurong believes gathering so many people guarantees victory. She imagines killing Heiho Mask, earning Heavy Bean's approval, and becoming an official member of the Big Smile Guild. Her thoughts are cut short when a warning comes that monsters are approaching in unusually large numbers. She orders everyone to form up, but quickly realizes the situation is unstable. At that moment, she notices Hirkin riding his golem and striking a golden gong, deliberately drawing monsters toward them. Chaos erupts as the participants are overwhelmed. Reports come in that they cannot hold much longer. Cho realizes her ambush has failed and orders them to endure until the lure effect fades, declaring she will handle Hirkin herself. She rushes ahead, leaping across monsters, leaving the others behind as bait. Hirkin soon senses her approach. Cho confronts him directly and challenges him to a one-on-one duel. He questions her motives and her identity, noting it makes no sense for a stranger to want him dead so badly. She claims she is simply eliminating a competitor for the unique skill book. They clash. Herkin immediately sees through her excuse and attacks. She blocks, counters, and narrowly avoids a bone bomb explosion. Herkin recognizes her skill and presses her for her affiliation, but she deflects and activates her battle armor, releasing a powerful aura. Realizing she is serious and dangerous, Herkin prepares himself and accepts the duel. He orders his summons to stay out of it, honoring the one-on-one challenge. Cho is briefly unsettled by his composure, then charges at him with full force, only to have her attack cleanly blocked. Herkin laughs, saying nothing has changed, but Cho vanishes and reappears behind him, striking instantly. He realizes her speed has surged. She presses the attack with a flurry of blows, forcing him to his knees. Mocking him, she charges again, shouting that he should die for crossing Heavy Bean. As Herkin lowers his head, one of his summons trips her. Startled, Cho falters. Herkin smiles and attacks, stating calmly that she is from the Big Smile Guild. Unable to defend in time, she is struck and soon bound to a tree. He questions her about why Big Smile is hunting him. She laughs and refuses to answer. When he names her as Cho Wurong, Heavy Bean's subordinate, she denies it, then panics when he says he already knows. Herkin explains he has his own sources and asks again why Big Smile is targeting him. She claims she doesn't know, then screams for him to kill her. He refuses, saying it would be a waste, knowing she would revive anyway. He leaves her tied there and warns her not to interfere again. As he walks away, Cho realizes he saw through everything and is shaken by his words, confused by feelings she has never had before. Later, Cho reports her failure to Heavy Bean. He tells her to rest, but after the call, he erupts in rage. Soon after, Apollo contacts him, demanding to know why news is spreading that Big Smile was defeated by Heiho Mask. Heavy Bean is left humiliated and furious. Meanwhile, Herkin reaches the blue giant and fights it with his summons. The battle drags on, exhausting him completely. He finally defeats the level 85 monster after 30 minutes and comments on its absurd endurance. Resting, he reflects on Big Smile's hostility and recalls how top guilds once tried to crush his rise in his past life. Suspecting something larger, he abandons overthinking and decides to crush anyone who stands in his way. With 138 hours remaining, he begins farming relentlessly. When the gate finally opens, exhausted participants return, complaining about the difficulty and blaming Cho Wurong. Herkin appears loaded with rewards, casually mocking them. From the shadows, Cho watches him again, vowing that next time will be different, though her gaze lingers longer than it should. At that moment, Belay steps forward to announce the top contributor of the mission. Belay calls Herkin by name and summons him to the office. Herkin rushes over, excited at being recognized. The administrative captain praises him for leading the kill count and defeating the blue giant, thanking him for his contribution. He then mentions the recent appearance of unfamiliar blue-skinned monsters infused with ice energy, including creatures like the blue giant, and suspects they originate from the ice mountain. He considers sending an expedition there, but notices Herkin is distracted. Herkin answers quickly, already familiar with the Frozen Mountain Kingdom. When Belay brings up the reward and a possible mission, Herkin's attention snaps back, earning a comment about how predictable he is. Belay then explains that the Secret Order has sent a letter assigning Herkin to the Oral Mountains, where he must meet the blacksmith wolf to receive the next mission. The reward is unspecified. Herkin notes that the area is filled with high-level monsters and suspects they are deliberately pushing him. Belay hands over the promised unique skill book as his reward. Herkin clings to it excitedly, while Belay tells him to use it well. Herkin activates the book and receives the unique skill clay creation, leaving him briefly confused about its purpose. Elsewhere, Scylla erupts in fury after learning that outsiders interfered with a Thunder Hunter's raid and stole their target. Her rampage devastates the area as Hatch struggles to calm her. When told the intruders are not from the top 30 guilds and escaped cleanly, Syl orders their identities uncovered and bounties placed on them, vowing to personally eliminate them if they appear again. In another location, members of the Hands Guild discuss the same interference. They acknowledge the risk, but reaffirm their goal of maintaining balance from the shadows. When Heiho Mask is mentioned, Singlet deflects the blame and states their priority is restraining the top 30 guilds, leaving Herkin for later. The group agrees and moves on to their next objective. Back with Herkin, he studies clay creation and realizes it allows him to reshape his golem using monster materials, with effectiveness tied to proficiency. Excited by the possibilities, he tests it using a blue giant tooth. The golem transforms into a miniature blue giant instead. A system notice explains the result is weakened due to low skill rank. Herkin stares at it in disbelief and curses the game. Herkin arrives at Urgel village still irritated, blaming himself for getting his hopes up. He knows pets were rare even in his past life and decides to level the skill later, focusing instead on the main mission. Checking the quest, he thinks of Blacksmith Wolf, a legendary NPC of the Secret Order whose weapons were famous, and realizes this is his first chance to meet him. After a long walk, Herkin reaches Wolf's workshop and enters, only to find it eerily empty. Before he can react, he is struck hard and slammed into the wall as his HP drops rapidly. An old man mocks him, calling newcomers weak, then slams a massive hammer into the ground. It is Blacksmith Wolf. Herkin asks if he is really Wolf and why he was attacked. Wolf explains it was simply a test for new members of the Secret Order. Herkin explodes in anger, but immediately receives system notifications granting him 2 rare titles. The first to speak with Wolf and the first to survive the blacksmith, significantly boosting his stats. Realizing how valuable this is, his attitude flips instantly. Wolf asks if he is still angry. Herkin responds with exaggerated affection, clinging to Wolf and praising him until the old man grows unsettled, calls him crazy, and throws a bag at his face. Wolf kicks him out and orders him to deliver the bag to the residents of Behem Forest. As Herkin tumbles outside, a new mission registers. Deliver the bag to Behem Forest and earn the blacksmith's recognition. He grows excited, knowing elves live there, but also recalls they are hostile, elusive, and constantly moving. Unsure how to find them, he heads to the city square. There, he bangs a golden gong and loudly announces he is buying information on Behem Forest for up to 100,000 gold. Players whisper in shock, recognizing him as Heiho Mask. Embarrassed but determined, Herkin endures it, preferring this over attracting top guild attention online. Suddenly, a man appears carrying a massive defeated monster. He addresses Herkin directly, calling him Heiho Mask. Herkin freezes, recognizing Pitbull Singh, a top 100 ranked player. The crowd erupts, speculating about a possible clash and insisting Herkin stands no chance against him. Enraged, Herkin silences them. Singh then steps closer, saying he knows everything about Behem Forest. Herkin suppresses his instincts, wondering if it's a trap, and asks calmly what Singh's price is. Singh begins talking about the price, and everyone waits in silence. Then he bluntly says the price is that he wants to confess his love. Herkin freezes, completely lost, while the surrounding players grow awkward, wondering if Pitbull Singh just confessed to Heiho Mask in the middle of the city. They quickly flee into the forest. Herkin finally snaps, demanding to know what just happened. Singh tells him to calm down, which only makes Herkin angrier, pointing out that Singh caused chaos by confessing publicly. Herkin rejects him outright, saying he doesn't like men. Singh gets irritated and says he never confessed to him. Singh explains that months ago, while hunting, he saw a lone rabbit and then a woman who gently warned it not to wander. He was instantly captivated, but she fled. He waited in that area for months, gathering information about elves from NPCs, but found nothing. When he heard Heiho Mask was looking for elves, he decided to approach him. Herkin realizes that explains Singh's behavior, though he's annoyed Singh didn't just say it directly. Needing to finish his mission, Herkin tells him to lead the way. Singh brings him to Beacon Waterfall, explaining it's where elves often appear, along with a great oak tree nearby. He also warns that powerful monsters roam the area. A level 90 bark serpent appears. Singh offers to handle it, but Herkin insists on fighting alone and charges in confidently, only to be smashed aside by the serpent. Herkin screams in pain about his nose while Singh and the serpent stare in disbelief. As the serpent attacks again, arrows suddenly strike it. Herkin explains that NPC residents don't fight monsters, so when they're cornered, elves intervene. As expected, elves appear. Herkin approaches, claiming he's acting under Lord Wolf's orders, but an arrow is aimed at him. The elves accuse him of deceiving them and denounce humans as liars. Herkin hesitates, wondering if force is his only option. Then Singh kneels and apologizes for deceiving them, saying he only wanted to meet the elf he encountered before. He openly admits he fell in love at first sight and asks for a chance. To Herkin's disbelief, the elf accepts. The elves laugh, teasing that Selene charmed a human, and lead Sing toward their village. Left stunned, Herkin realizes the mission is technically complete and follows along. Sing, glowing with happiness, says he feels like he could die of joy. Herkin explodes in frustration, demanding to know if this is a dating game and why everything turned out like this, while telling Sing to stop acting like they weren't almost killed moments ago. Herkin tells Sing that the prettier someone is, the crazier people become, adding that he knows someone even more beautiful and completely insane. Sing replies that he doesn't like elves just for their looks, explaining that elves are symbols of fantasy. Herkin briefly suspects Sing is a pervert, but Sing clarifies that ever since he was young, elves have been central to the fantasy worlds he loved, and adventuring alongside them had always been his dream. Herkin grows confused and asks what that has to do with confessing. Sing asks whether Herkin isn't also playing this game to fulfill his own dreams. Herkin says he has no such dreams, only the goal of becoming the strongest and crushing anyone who looks down on him. Sing asks if that doesn't make Herkin the same as those who once looked down on him. The question catches Herkin off guard. He dismisses it, saying the strong devour the weak, and that's how the world works. Sing asks whether what happened to Herkin in the past wasn't also natural. Herkin snaps and punches him, the impact echoing through the forest. He grabs Sing by the collar, saying dreams and happiness are luxuries for people who already have something, and asks if Sing knows what it means to fight just to survive and lose everything in an instant. As he equips his battle armor, he tells Sing to stop preaching. The elves scold them for fighting, then announce they've arrived at Behem village. At the largest tree, the village elder appears. Herkin delivers Wolf's package, completing the mission. When the elder opens it, Herkin realizes it contains an epic item, the bracelet of purification, capable of removing all negative effects. He recalls that this item is tied to purifying a corrupted elf later in the main quest. However, the elder tells Herkin to leave, saying he is still too weak to proceed. Furious, Herkin vows to return after training. He heads into monster territory and begins slaughtering creatures relentlessly, thinking about how the Thunder Hunters are advancing the main quest while he's being held back. As he fights non-stop, exhaustion sets in. Distracted, he drops his sword as monsters close in, and he simply stands there, unmoving. Elsewhere, Sing recounts the incident to the elf. She suggests he apologize honestly, saying that's what friends do. Sing realizes she may be right. Back on the battlefield, just as the monsters are about to strike Herkin, Sing appears and crushes one with a single punch. He says he came to apologize and that he arrived just in time. Herkin, stunned and irritated, warns him to leave if he's looking for another fight as his summons rush forward. Sing remains standing in silence. Sing apologizes, and Herkin is startled enough to stop his summons mid-attack. With blades at his throat, Sing explains that his words came from concern, and that when he spoke about things he didn't truly understand, it turned into an unwanted lecture. That was why he was apologizing. Herkin turns away, irritated, and tells him that if he feels that guilty, he can help hunt monsters. Sing asks if that means his apology was accepted. Herkin mocks him, saying he'll drain him dry and that he'd better not regret it. Sing laughs, asking if apologizing comes with a price. Herkin explodes again, curses him, and says he already accepted it. Monsters suddenly rush in. Without another word, the two move together, crushing the creatures with ease. System messages pile up as experience pours in. After hours of non-stop fighting, Herkin collapses exhausted, realizing he has finally reached level 100. He checks his status, seeing his massive stats and dozens of titles. Sing, equally drained, comments that it was insane. Herkin agrees, noting they barely slept for days. Sing says he's logging out. Herkin accepts it, then hesitates before awkwardly thanking him. Sing tells him not to be shy, says it's embarrassing between men, and logs out. Herkin immediately shouts insults after him. Back in Behem village, the elder now judges Herkin strong enough. He hands over the bracelet of purification and begins the corrupted elf quest, warning that corrupted beings cannot be reasoned with. Herkin receives the bracelet, satisfied, already thinking of keeping it. When he asks where to go, the elder admits he doesn't know and leaves, telling Herkin to figure out himself. Outside, Herkin rages at the lack of information, then calms down and thinks it through. Corrupted elves raise monster armies, meaning unusual monster activity will appear nearby. Instead of revealing the quest, he decides to buy information on newly spawned monsters and piece it together himself. While boasting about his own genius, someone approaches and asks if he's looking for monster information. Herkin turns eagerly, then freezes. It's Shev the Slayer. Earlier, Shev had received a new anonymous message identical to the old one about elf corruption, pointing out someone was buying monster information. He immediately realized it was a smokescreen by someone who knew the truth and decided to intercept it himself. Now, standing before Shev, Herkin feels the plan collapse. He considers retreating, but feels Shev's overwhelming pressure. He summons his minions defensively. Shev laughs, saying it was the right choice, since attacking would have gotten Herkin killed. He then grows serious, saying Herkin's physical ability and information control far exceed a normal rookie. Shev asks directly who Heiho Mask really is. Herkin opens his mouth to answer and starts yelling instead. Herkin suddenly began acting unhinged, collapsing to the ground and screaming that he was just a stupid novice being threatened by someone from the Red Bulls Guild. He wailed about only looking for monster information, briefly pausing to fake a crying face before continuing to flail and shout. Shev remained silent. Herkin wondered if the act had worked. After a moment, Shev sighed and said there must have been a misunderstanding, since he didn't think Herkin was the person from the report. Herkin immediately stood up, relieved, saying it was all a misunderstanding. Then Shev mentioned a 5 billion bonus. Herkin froze, momentarily lost in the number, until Shev calmly clarified that it came with salary, benefits, and incentives. He then turned away, saying that if Herkin wasn't who he was looking for, there was nothing more to discuss. Herkin chased after him, claiming it had always been his dream to join the Red Bulls, only to stop himself mid-thought and shout that Shev couldn't buy people with money. Shev pointed out that Herkin's actions contradicted his words. Herkin muttered that 5 billion could buy a lot of meat. Shev then directly offered the same contract to Heiho Mask. Herkin refused without hesitation. Shev's sword appeared at his neck as he warned that refusal meant becoming an enemy. Herkin still said no, activating his battle armor and declaring he would rely on his own strength, even if it meant dying there. Shev said nothing. Instead, he sat near the cliff and commented on the view. He mentioned the Red Lake and casually shared that his guild had confirmed a sudden increase in monster spawns nearby. Herkin questioned why he was being told this. Shev laughed and said they didn't consider him a rival, adding that the Red Bulls bowed to no one. They were only sharing the information out of respect for his solo play. As Shev turned to leave, Herkin shouted Salt Mountain, deducing their main quest route. Shev stopped, surprised, then laughed, calling Herkin an idiot. Furious, Herkin cursed him and stormed off with a summons. Later, Shev reported the failed recruitment, admitting Herkin looked ready to break rather than join. He said he was curious how far Heiho Mask would go alone. Herkin soon arrived at Red Lake. While his summons played in the water, he recalled memories of leveling there with his old guild. Shaking it off, he ordered his summons into formation when a group approached. He prepared an ambush, only to freeze when they bowed instead. The priest begged for help. They explained they were from the Golden Brothers Guild's 2nd Division and faced expulsion if they failed to hunt a corrupted gray rooster. Herkin refused outright. They broke down, clinging to him and offering payment. Curious despite himself, Herkin asked how much. The warrior answered 20,000. Herkin turned away, saying the price is too low. The warrior clings to his leg, insisting it's all they have and offering all rewards if the monster is defeated. Tired of the begging, Herkin agrees to take the 20,000 and everything else. They eagerly accept, thank him, and hurry to pay as he walks ahead. Earlier, the same group had been chained in a slave farm owned by Apollo, begging for time to repay their debt. Apollo offered them a single chance at freedom by ordering them to kill Heiho Mask, lending them high-quality equipment and threatening eternal slavery if they failed. Back in the present, they watch Herkin's back, planning to strike while he's distracted. Before they move, a massive presence lands, the level 120 corrupted gray rooster. Herkin remarks on the noise, tells them to handle the rest after the armor is stripped, activates muscle modification, and charges forward. His speed shocks them. He dodges the rooster's long-range feathers, closes in, and dismantles its armor piece by piece, calling it slow. As he announces only the helmet remains, the warrior gives the signal. Fireballs erupt behind Herkin, one after another, burying him in explosions. The group celebrates, believing they're free. Then Herkin's voice cuts through the dust. He says something was wrong from the start. Poor players don't carry gear like that, and no one sends a necromancer to the front without a plan. His abilities activate in sequence, reinforcing armor, health, and recovery. He summons his forces and calmly states that their identities don't matter. They're already dead. Panic spreads as the warrior orders more magic. A cockatrice suddenly appears behind Herkin and his summons, clearly under his control. As fear grips them, the system warns Herkin that a corrupted elf is nearby. The elf appears briefly, enraged, then flees. A timer starts. Herkin curses the group, orders them to stall the cockatrice, and chases after the elf, warning them not to run. Time ticks down as he pursues. The elf remains just out of reach. Herkin throws skeleton bombs, but the elf dodges each time. With seconds left, he throws another bomb ahead, then uses the explosion to propel himself forward. He closes the distance at the last moment and grabs the elf. The elf bites its own tongue and laughs. Furious, Herkin slams it into the ground, pulls out the tiara, and forces it onto the elf's head. The artifact activates, and the system announces that purification has begun. Hoping it worked, Herkin watches as the elf pulls out a map and hands it to him before collapsing and dying. The mission completes, but Herkin realizes the elf was doomed from the start. He looks at the map, crushed by frustration, and curses the game, wondering why the chase even mattered. Nearby, the warriors group is still struggling against the cockatrice. When their weapons begin to fail, Herkin returns and drops his golem from above, crushing the monster instantly. The group rejoices, tearfully claiming they knew he would forgive them. Instead, Herkin beats them down and demands the truth. They confess that Apollo's guild ordered his death, using their debts as leverage. Angered, Herkin realizes multiple guilds are now moving against him. He orders the group to hand over everything they have and declares that from now on, each of them owes him 1 million gold per week. They are left stunned. At the Big Smile Guild headquarters, Heavy Bean learns that the Red Bulls have declared war in retaliation for the attack on Heiho Mask. Before he can react, another report arrives. Rare items he lent to Apollo's guild are now listed for sale by Heiho Mask himself. Heavy Bean grits his teeth, cursing the name. Hours later, Herkin returns to the Elven village frustrated. DRA kept the purification diadem and dismissed him, though he did grant a new mission: uncover the secret tied to the location shown in the corrupted elf's memory. The clue describes a place watched by waters, blue clouds overhead, and a hidden village. Herkin curses the elves for writing riddles, then resigns himself to asking the one person who understands their language. He finds Sing surrounded by elf women, living comfortably. Enraged, Herkin drags him over and demands a translation. Sing quickly explains the riddle points to the blue mist forest, watched over from high ground. Herkin grows even angrier, punching a tree and fuming at how unfair everything feels, until his summons awkwardly try to comfort him. A level 110 Smogrian suddenly attacks. Herkin and his summons tear it apart, and he levels up again. Looking around, he realizes the area matches Sing's warning, yet there are no humans in sight. As mist thickens between the trees, a masked figure emerges, demanding to know who Herkin is and who he serves. Herkin answers that he belongs to no one. The figure calls him an intruder and releases a crushing, ominous power. Herkin immediately senses the field around him change as the masked figure advances, declaring that intruders must be eliminated. The opponent reveals itself as a corrupted comrade, Ian, of unknown level. Realizing this is tied to the main mission, Herkin barely reacts in time to block Ian's charge. He counterattacks and orders his summons to strike, but they are wiped out in a single blow. Herkin rushes forward in anger, unleashing a flurry of attacks, only to see Ian regenerate instantly as the system warns that physical attacks are ineffective. Magic fares no better, and another summon is destroyed. Herkin understands he is facing something unlike anything from his past life. With no choice, he goes all out, summoning his golem, empowering his remaining forces, and layering curses. Even then, Ian counters effortlessly, shattering his summons again and driving Herkin back with overwhelming force. Herkin presses on himself, analyzing every movement, but is kicked aside and nearly crushed. Using his golem to restrain Ian for an instant, he exploits a brief opening created by his curse, orders a final magical assault, and detonates everything at once. When the dust settles, Herkin collapses as the system announces the completion of the corrupted elf remembrance mission and grants him the title Corruption Destroyer. Exhausted and frustrated, he believes it's over, until Ian walks toward him again. Ian suddenly drives his own sword into his head and falls, begging Herkin to finish him before corruption takes hold again. He reveals he was once a member of the Secret Order, captured and broken by the founder of corruption, forced to slaughter countless people. Herkin realizes the true enemy lies elsewhere and considers purification, but Ian stops him. Calling Herkin a good person, he impales himself fully and vanishes, entrusting Herkin with what remains. The system confirms an inheritance mission completion. Later, Herkin brings Ian's sword to Hunter Wong, who recognizes it as his lost friend's and tells Herkin to keep it. When Herkin checks its attributes, he is stunned by its power and accepts it without hesitation. Elsewhere, Syl learns of Heiho Mask's movements and grows increasingly fixated, while Singlet quietly approaches her with an offer to eliminate him, sparking her interest. Leaving Wong's cabin, Herkin is still celebrating his new weapon when shouts erupt ahead of him, a crowd rushing forward and calling for the elimination of the Heiho Mask. While dodging attacks, Herkin demands to know who they are and how they recognized him as Heiho Mask. Romani suddenly contacts him, asking if he's still alive, then drops the bombshell. A 100 million gold bounty has been placed on his head through the dark web. Herkin is stunned, unable to grasp how things escalated this far. Earlier, Singlet explained to Syl that Heiho Mask was an uncontrollable variable, like an illegal chess piece that had to be removed quickly. Many guilds had already agreed, and with the Thunder Hunter's help it would be easier. Syl smiled in agreement, then suddenly attacked Singlet, smashing him into the ground and pinning him with her sword. She coldly accused his guild of stealing her boss and declared she didn't negotiate with thieves. Singlet retaliated briefly, then fled. Furious, Hahui wanted to chase him, but Syl stopped her, dismissing him as a rat. She ordered Hatch and Hahui to contact every guild and announce that Heiho Mask belonged to her, and that anyone who touched him would be wiped out. Singlet, fleeing at full speed, reported the failed negotiation to his master. He was told to stay out of it and wait. The move had already been made. Watching multiple feeds of Heiho Mask, the man calmly observed how the pawn would react. Back in the present, Herkin keeps running as more players swarm him. Knocking one down only brings more. Romani jokes that he's become a walking lottery ticket and asks who he angered this time. Herkin insists he did nothing, though Syl briefly crosses his mind. Romani presses him for a plan, warning that her livelihood depends on his commissions. Herkin snaps back that quitting isn't happening, opens the auction, buys a wyvern skull, and decides to force the truth out. He summons his golem and dumps all attribute points in a clay manipulation. The system announces the skill has reached rank A. Using the wyvern skull, he activates the skill, burning through a fortune as the golem reshapes. The transformation finishes, revealing a massive wyvern. Herkin laughs and challenges anyone to come first. He takes off into the air, leaving the shouting players below. Still irritated, he realizes he can't progress like this forever. He decides the only way forward is confronting the source directly and sends a request for a private meeting with Thunder Queen Syl. That night, he lands on his wyvern where Syl is waiting. She complains he ignored her summons. Herkin, tense with old hatred, asks if she placed the bounty. She says no. He accuses her anyway, shouting about betrayal and manipulation. She stays calm, saying he wouldn't believe her regardless. Her words echo something she said before his regression, unsettling him. Syl explains that an unknown rancor recently proposed excluding Heiho Mask from the game entirely. She refused, suspecting broader interference in the main quest. Herkin realizes that something truly did happen before his regression. He half believes her and prepares to leave, convinced she isn't the mastermind. Syl stops him and offers guild protection, warning that surviving alone with a 100 million bounty is unrealistic. She promises not to force him into anything. Herkin refuses outright, declaring he will become the strongest on his own. Sil calls him childish, then smiles and tells him to do his best. She'll be one of his competitors. Herkin flies off, unsettled. Romani soon contacts him again, panicking over wanted posters spreading everywhere. Herkin can only sigh, knowing this is far from over. The next day, in Missandra's castle, Herkin walks into a beating. A group is roughing up a terrified blonde boy, demanding he hand over a request. Herkin steps in and asks if the boy is Git. The boy confirms his name, trembling. Herkin tells him to come along. When one of the men charges him, Herkin drops all three effortlessly. Git stares in shock as the men collapse. Herkin looks at him and asks if he's curious who just saved him. Herkin says nothing for a moment. Jit remained silent for a moment, then bowed and thanked Herkin for saving him, saying he had given up and would have lost the quest without him. Herkin calmly pointed out that it was the ruins dungeon exploration quest, and that clearing it would remove the blocked field behind it. When Jit asked how he knew, Herkin told him to hand it over. Jit grew irritated, assuming Herkin was just like the others. They entered the Missandra Ruins dungeon as a two-person party, with the condition that if either died or left, the quest would fail. Herkin moved forward, carrying Jit, who continued crying that the first quest that made him feel acknowledged was being taken away. Herkin snapped at him to stop bawling and told him that if he hated losing things, he should try stopping it with strength. Jit lashed out, saying it was useless no matter how much he tried. He admitted he was weak, failed raids, died alone in the field, and eventually gave up, drifting through minor village quests until he finally obtained this one. For the first time, he felt recognized by the game. There was no way he could beat someone like Herkin. Herkin dropped him and told him to keep living like that if he wanted. Still, he said he would clear the dungeon no matter what, and that just because Jit had lived weakly until now didn't mean he had to stay that way forever. Left alone, Jit wiped his tears, confused by Herkin's behavior. After debating whether to log out, he decided to go wait quietly at the dungeon entrance and slowly stood up. Several bug monsters suddenly appeared in front of Jit. When he opened his eyes and saw a giant one, he panicked and ran straight to Herkin. Hearing him, Herkin turned just as Jit leapt into his arms in terror. Irritated, Herkin shoved him away while Jit screamed about monsters and being eaten. Herkin drew his sword and cut down the swarm as Jit ran in circles, shouting for help. An hour later, after clearing the bugs, Herkin stood exhausted and grabbed Jit, accusing him of causing trouble on purpose. Jit cried and insisted he was just scared of monsters. Herkin let him go and told him to stay put, warning that if he interfered during the boss fight, he would kill him. They had already reached the boss room. Jit, realizing it only then, nervously explained that the giant ant den was infamous, endlessly respawning spiderlings that exploded on contact, and a giant spider boss with metal-hard hide. Herkin dismissed it and moved forward alone, telling him to stop fussing. Avoiding the trash mobs, Herkin advanced swiftly through the webs and reached the giant spider without touching a single strand. From a distance, Jit watched in shock as Herkin overwhelmed the boss with precise strikes, dropping it quickly. While staring, Jit accidentally stepped on a web. A small spider leapt onto him and exploded. He fell as more spiderlings swarmed over him, each one detonating on contact. Overwhelmed and unable to run, he froze as multiple explosions erupted around him. Herkin suddenly appeared, taking the blast head-on and shielding him. Calling him useless, he ordered Jit to run to the entrance. Even as spiderlings crawled over him and exploded in succession, Herkin stood firm, warning that if the quest failed because of him, he would kill him. Blood splattered across the dungeon floor as the explosions settled, leaving Jit staring in shock. Terrified, Jit ran toward the dungeon entrance. As he fled, he wondered why he was always so pathetic, why all he ever did was cause trouble and run away. He stumbled and fell hard, sitting on the ground as tears streamed down his face. He told himself he was useless, that maybe he should just quit. A memory surfaced, someone telling him to know his place and live accordingly. He muttered an apology under his breath. Then he recalled Herkin's words about not having to live weak forever. Slowly, he sat up, something shifting inside him. Inside the dungeon, spiders had wrapped Herkin completely in webbing, forming a cocoon. He tore through it with his sword and landed back on the ground, irritated. If Jit had died, the quest would have failed, so he had no choice but to protect him. He prepared to summon skeletons, but paused when he heard shouting. Jit appeared, holding his fire sword and yelling to draw the spider's attention. Herkin stared at him as Jit declared he would pull aggro, so Herkin could kill the boss. Herkin told him to leave, warning he would die. Jit insisted he wouldn't, saying he was good at running away. If Herkin killed the boss, they would be even. Herkin exhaled and called him shameless, but admitted it was better than watching him cry. He advanced toward the giant spider and resumed the fight. Jit moved as well, still trembling. His body shook, monster still terrified him, and he knew he was weak. A small spider leapt onto him and exploded, and he gritted his teeth. Steadying himself, he began cutting down the spiderlings with his fire sword. For the first time, the shaking felt different. After a prolonged battle, Jit collapsed from exhaustion, declaring they had cleared the dungeon. The system confirmed the completion of the Missandra Ruins dungeon. As he lay there, Jit reflected that even if he had only done the grunt work, he had still cleared it. Maybe he had grown a little. Suddenly, a group approached from behind and ambushed him. One of them remarked in surprise that the two of them had actually cleared the dungeon. The man pressed a knife to Jit's neck, commenting that they had more skill than expected. Hearing the voice, Herkin turned. The stranger tightened his grip and spoke casually, while Jit winced. Herkin looked at him coldly and asked what he was trying to pull. The man told Herkin to hand over the Dispel Block field title, saying that if he refused, he would die. Jit suddenly bit the man's hand and shouted not to give it away, insisting they had worked hard to clear the quest. Before he could finish, the man punched him, sending him to the ground. Grabbing Jit by the collar, he told him to understand his situation and bow his head. Jit spat in his face and said he did not even feel pain, that compared to the spiders earlier, his fists felt like cotton. Enraged, the man drew his knife to stab him. Herkin spoke up, mentioning the title. Both of them looked at him. Jit stared in shock as Herkin said he would hand it over, but only if the man beat him and took it himself. The man laughed, questioning what Herkin could do alone. Before he finished, skeletons appeared and eliminated his companions from behind. The man turned in shock as Jit stared, confused about where the skeletons had come from. Recognizing the summons, the man realized Herkin was the Hahom Mask, the solo ranker with guild-level combat power. He questioned why someone like that was there. Herkin placed a hand on his shoulder and told him it was none of his business, ordering him to hand over everything. Soon, a cry echoed through the dungeon as Herkin defeated him and took his war watch. As they exited, Herkin muttered that nobody's always caused trouble. Jit watched him, realizing he was not just a slightly strong player but a named ranker. He hesitated, then bowed again and thanked him for saving him and clearing the dungeon together. He admitted he would never have cleared the quest, physically or mentally, without him, and said he would be going. Herkin stopped him and told him to take the title. Jit was shocked, saying he did not deserve it. Herkin replied that he needed at least that much if he did not want to keep getting beaten up, and asked if he planned to continue playing. Jit broke into tears and said he would work hard. As Herkin walked away, he asked if he was crying again. Jit insisted it was just a runny nose. Herkin sat on a stone bridge, stretching. He felt more comfortable dressed like this. Keeping a low profile because of the bounty had been pointless. Still, it was not a waste. Jit, the quest man, was a named player who specialized in collecting rare quests. He would be useful later. He recalled Jit thanking him for the title, then dismissed the thought. He was not sure Jit would truly become a proper quest man. In any case, the blocked field was now cleared. He stood and looked toward the nearby city. It was time to get serious. His real goal, the beginning of Chapter 2 of the main quest, was ahead. It was time to enter the cursed territory. At Ricky Town Plaza, a black-haired boy arrived with a map, amazed at the newly unlocked area and the crowded streets. A blonde girl tapped his shoulder and told him to focus. Everyone there was competition. She pointed out members of Ares, Triple Wing, and even Hydra. Word had spread that the main quest continued here, and all the major guilds had gathered. The boy wondered if a no-name guild like theirs could survive. A voice told them to move. They turned and saw Hahom Mask. The crowd stirred, recognizing him as the one who unlocked the field and cleared everything solo. Herkin looked at the crowd, thinking they had come sniffing around after hearing he cleared the blocked field. Then he overheard rumors that admins were boosting him, that someone was pulling strings. He ignored it, telling himself he reached this point with pure skill. More voices spread new gossip, that he was Celian Che's pet, that the Thunder Queen threatened anyone who touched him, that he was involved with Chev from Red Bulls, that top guild masters were fighting over him. Irritated, Herkin grabbed one man by the mouth and told him to shut up, insisting he was nobody's pet or lover. As the man tried to speak, Herkin grew angrier and demanded to know who started the rumor. Before it escalated further, an NPC of the Secret Order, Sarabo, stepped in and told him to stop causing a scene before an important mission. The crowd gasped at Sarabo's appearance and fell into murmurs. Herkin released the man and realized this was truly the main quest site. The quest was about to begin. Sarabo announced the start and explained that the cursed territory was where the source of corruption once conducted experiments. The monsters and even parts of the land were cursed, and the first objective was to lift those curses. Herkin recalled what he knew before regressing. Sarabo was supposed to assign the retrieval of Voodoo Chimera, a manageable cursed monster whose spawn location and countermeasures he already knew. He waited for the name. Sarabo declared the target, Evil Eye. Herkin froze. The crowd reacted immediately. Evil Eye was level 150 and possessed a passive area-wide curse. People questioned how they were supposed to defeat it. Sarabo clarified that not everyone would participate. Only 4 teams would be given the chance to hunt Evil Eye. Shock spread through the crowd. Someone asked what would happen to the rest. Sarabo answered that those who could not join would no longer be part of the mission. The crowd protested, realizing it meant they could not continue the main quest. Sarabo dismissed objections and told anyone dissatisfied to leave, then wished them luck. After a brief pause, everyone rushed forward in a frenzy to secure a spot. Players pushed past each other. One man bumped into Herkin, started to complain, then recognized him and quickly apologized. Herkin stood still, unsettled. This was not how it happened before. Something had changed. He questioned whether his regression had altered the future or whether his past knowledge had been incomplete from the start. He slapped himself and forced himself to calm down. What mattered now was assessing the situation. He narrowed it down to 2 possibilities. Either his regression was changing events, or what he remembered had never been fully accurate. Elsewhere, Single arrived near the cursed territory. Opening the message portal on his watch, he reported to his superior that he had reached the area and was about to begin the main quest. Once it was done, he would take care of Ha-Ho Mask for sure this time. Inside the cursed territory forest, a massive minotaur roared. The black-haired boy panicked and ran, barely dodging its attacks. His sword shattered while blocking, and he shouted to the magic squad, asking how much longer. The yellow-haired girl and 3 mages finished charging a portal and told him to hold on. As the minotaur closed in, a fully charged lightning bolt fired from the portal and struck it down. The system announced the defeat of a voodoo chimera. The girl immediately ordered the mages to reform the front line and prepare for the next hunt. The boy ran to her, complaining that it was too scary and that clearing a main quest against top 30 guilds was impossible. Before she could fully respond, a burst of blue light flashed deeper in the forest. She told him to look. Herkin had activated his war watch and was advancing alone. He leapt into the air and cut down one minotaur with a precise strike, sliced through a second midair, and severed the third's head before landing. The boy stared in shock. 3 voodoo chimeras alone. The girl dragged him forward, pointing out that someone was clearing the quest solo, so he should stop whining. The boy recognized Ha-Ho Mask and muttered that he was on a completely different level. He felt a quiet jealousy, wishing he could play like that. A system window showed the voodoo chimera hunt timer counting down. Herkin continued cutting down minotaurs one after another, pushing himself faster. Eventually, he dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. Things were not unfolding as he remembered. Someone was targeting him, and without reliable information, even progressing the main quest felt uncertain. After the last minotaur fell, a skeleton brought him a health potion. He refused it. Another minotaur appeared. He stepped forward without hesitation. Other guilds moved in teams of 5 or more. If he wanted to outpace them, he had to move faster than all of them. The minotaur turned toward Herkin and roared before launching a series of heavy attacks. 2 strikes landed, injuring him. He immediately summoned his skeletons, and they finished the minotaur at once. The voodoo chimera hunt timer expired. Sarabo appeared at the reporting ground and praised the first hunter for killing an overwhelming number of chimeras in a short time, noting that most had been hunted solo. He asked for the name to report to the association. Herkin ran toward the reporting site as fast as he could. When he arrived, Sarabo turned and announced that the second place had just arrived. Breathing heavily, Herkin froze. Second place. He wondered who had beaten him. Ares, Hydra, some powerful team. When he saw the black-haired boy and the yellow-haired girl standing as first place, he was stunned. A voice greeted him, saying it had been a long time. Herkin recognized it and recalled past encounters and mentions of an unknown ranker. Singlet stepped forward and addressed him directly, saying he had suspected it was him. Without warning, Herkin swung his sword. Singlet blocked the strike. Herkin pressed forward, demanding to know who he really was and why he kept interfering. Singlet calmly replied that the one interfering was not him, then drove a kick into Herkin's chest. The blow sent him crashing into a tree. He coughed, blood spilling from his mouth. Singlet raised his sword and pointed it at him, formally challenging Haho Mask Herkin to a one-on-one duel. If he won, Herkin would give up progressing the main quest there. Herkin glared back in anger. Singlet waited for an answer. Herkin glared at him and accepted the duel without hesitation. Seeing the growing crowd, Singlet suggested they move elsewhere. They relocated to a quiet area and stood facing each other. Singlet stared at him, recalling the humiliation he had endured because of Haho Mask and the mockery he received after failing before. He decided he would settle it here. While Singlet was lost in thought, Herkin began removing his equipment. Singlet frowned and asked what he was doing. Herkin said he was preparing to fight and asked if he had never heard of Watchman style. He explained that it was a method of fighting with only a watch equipped, abandoning gear and stat boosts, focusing purely on offense. It was a style meant to test talent alone, accepting death upon defeat. Singlet said he had never heard of such a technique. Herkin warned him not to mock it and questioned whether he had challenged him without the resolve to fight without equipment. Singlet's expression hardened. He discarded his own gear. "Now we're talking." Singlet told him to come. They stepped forward at the same time. Their swords collided midair. Herkin blocked the strike, but felt the weight behind it. Even through the clash, he sensed the force in Singlet's power. Singlet forced Herkin back with raw strength and followed with a heavy strike. Herkin blocked and countered, but Singlet slipped aside and said it was too slow. A clean blow sent Herkin crashing to the ground. Looking down at him, Singlet mocked his resolve. Herkin steadied his breathing. It wasn't just level or stats. Singlet's fighting sense was sharp, reading his movements. The pressure reminded him of Matador and Chai Seal-yin. A direct clash would not work. He surged forward and slashed, telling him to shut up. The blade grazed Singlet. It worked. Herkin advanced again and activated a curse. Before he could follow through, Singlet grabbed his head and slammed him down. Calling it boring, he said a simple debuff would not be enough and pressed his sword to Herkin's neck. Herkin said it wasn't over. He triggered a skeleton bomb. Smoke and violet flames filled the area. Singlet anticipated a blind assault and surged through the smoke. He lunged at a silhouette, but it was only a skeleton. It vanished. Confused, he received a call on his war watch. He said he was fighting Haho Mask. The voice told him he had been tricked and to check the live broadcast. On the stream, Herkin skeletons were seen stripping Singlet's discarded equipment. The earlier taunts echoed back at him. Singlet realized what was happening. Herkin's voice came through the broadcast, saying he would never fight a ranker head-on, and that the Watchman style was something he made up. The stream ended. Left alone in the clearing without his gear, Singlet shouted that he would kill Haho Mask Herkin. Singlet screamed in the clearing while Romani burst out laughing over the call, saying she almost died, adding subtitles to the live stream. Herkin admitted he had only bluffed because he had nothing to lose. If it had failed, he would have been the one lying on the ground. Romani asked what he would do next. Herkin said he would continue the main quest, but first he would sell the gear his skeleton stole. When she questioned who would dare buy it, he said they would sell it to someone unafraid, Red Bull's Matador Chev. At Salt Mountain, the Red Bulls cleared the subjugation quest. The guild cheered as Chev removed his helmet. His companion said the deal with Haho Mask was completed. Chev replied he needed equipment anyway. She questioned whether buying that particular gear would drag them into trouble. Chev laughed, saying a little thrill made things interesting. Suddenly, an attack exploded behind him. Chev blocked it effortlessly and swung his sword, sending the attacker back. It was Chai Seal-yin. He asked what brought the Thunder Queen there and whether this was a declaration of war. Seal-yin told him a hand over the gear Haho Mask sold him, saying only he or she would dare buy equipment with such a clear source. Since Herkin did not contact her, he must have gone to Chev. Chev thought she was like a ghost. He asked what she intended to do. She told him to refuse the deal and back off, saying it now belonged to Stormhunter. Chev replied that Haho Mask contacted them first and laughed, asking if that struck a nerve. Chai Seal-yin's expression hardened. She told Chev to stop laughing or she would kill him. Chev only laughed harder, thanking her for the rare sight, but refusing to give up the deal, saying he needed the gear as well. When she grew angrier, he added that he might be able to help her in another way. At the same time, Herkin received a gift in his inventory. Romani informed him it was from an anonymous sponsor. He questioned who would send custom gear for free. Romani avoided the answer and instead asked about his ideal type, saying the sponsor was curious. Herkin awkwardly replied that he had never thought about it. Maybe someone who liked him. Romani hinted there might be a chance, then abruptly ended the call. Herkin found it strange, but decided not to dwell on it. After selling the stolen gear, he prepared to proceed with the main quest. Sarabo gathered the qualified teams and announced them. No-Oppi Family, Haho Mask, Hydra Main Quest Special Team, and Triple Wing First Squad. He explained the next mission: defeat the Voodoo Chimera variant, the Evil Eye. The team that defeated it would receive a ward charm capable of dispelling curses, granting access to the entire curse territory. Herkin immediately understood the value of the reward. With it, they could freely investigate areas tied to the main quest. Defeating the Evil Eye was possible, but taking first place against raid-specialized guilds would be nearly impossible. Sarabo finished the explanation and ordered them to move out. The teams rushed toward the hunting grounds. Herkin remained still for a moment, thinking that if that was the case, only one method remained. Nearby, the yellow-haired girl worried aloud that they barely defeated the Voodoo Chimera earlier and stood no chance against the Evil Eye. The black-haired boy suggested giving up. At that moment, Herkin approached them and told them it was too early to quit, asking them to spare him a moment. The commander of Hydra reminded his team not to repeat their mistake from Chapter 1. This time, they would not let anyone steal the quest. They were to move to the Evil Eye's habitat and eliminate any competitors on sight. From a distance, Herkin observed them. Soon after, the black-haired boy ran toward Hydra's path, fell to the ground, and cried out for help, saying he could not continue. Watching from a tree branch, the Hydra leader recognized him as the lucky rookie from earlier. Assuming he was being chased, he decided it did not matter. Competitors were to be eliminated. Herkin appeared nearby and casually remarked that kids these days lacked grit. The yellow-haired girl arrived, pulled the boy up, and helped him walk. The boy complained about being stuck with someone like Herkin. She replied it was because of a scam contract. A short while earlier, Herkin had proposed an alliance. He told them they wanted to clear the main quest, but lacked the strength to defeat the Evil Eye. He could defeat it, but dealing with competitors was troublesome. If they helped eliminate the competition, he would take down the Evil Eye for them. The yellow-haired girl questioned how they could trust him. Herkin asked what alternative they had. After thinking, she agreed and told him not to betray them. He replied she should say that to herself. When she asked how they were supposed to eliminate competitors, he said they did not need to worry, they were just bait. Later, they entered the cursed altar field and reached the Evil Eye's habitat. Herkin commented that he found it faster than expected and asked why the atmosphere felt so gloomy. Exhausted, the yellow-haired girl shouted that it was because of him. He had charged into other teams, beaten them down, forced them into reckless distractions, and made them flee while he bombarded enemies from atop his golem. None of it seemed related to eliminating competitors. Herkin admitted it might not have been directly related, then added that it was fun and that all rival guilds had been driven away. Furious, the girl tried to attack him, but her companions restrained her. The black-haired boy said that since all competitors were gone, they only needed to wait for Haho Mask to defeat the Evil Eye. While they were talking, the golem suddenly grabbed them and threw them into the Evil Eye's habitat. They crashed into the Evil Eye's habitat and struggled to stand. The yellow-haired girl glared at Herkin in the distance and shouted that they had already done their part. He calmly replied that now it was their turn to keep their promise. Furious, she threatened to go after him, but before she could move, the Evil Eye appeared behind them and roared as it attacked. Left side, Herkin called. They dodged just in time. The black-haired boy froze in confusion, saying his body moved on its own. Another teammate said it felt like training. The girl realized something and drew her weapon, ordering everyone to attack. Though hesitant, they followed. As she advanced, she remembered Herkin's earlier training, how he told her she panicked, that she needed to watch the attack fully before dodging. When the monster struck again, she stayed calm and evaded properly. Her teammates moved in sync. Together, they overwhelmed the creature and brought it down. The black-haired boy stared at the fallen monster in shock. Before he could finish speaking, Herkin approached and told them they could do it if they tried. The girl asked if he had planned everything from the beginning. He said that reaching this place meant they had talent, though he hadn't expected it to work so well. She teared up briefly, then immediately grabbed his collar in anger, demanding to know why he threw them in when he had promised to defeat the Evil Eye. Herkin smiled and said he never broke that promise. She argued that they had already killed it. At that moment, the smell of blood spread. The ground trembled as a massive pillar rose upward. At its top sat a giant Evil Eye. Flesh-like vines burst from the earth and wrapped across the area. The girl stared in shock. Herkin placed a hand on her shoulder and said that was the real opponent. He stepped forward toward the towering monster. Evil Eye. The true Evil Eye sat atop the towering pillar, staring down at them. The yellow-haired girl muttered that they had not defeated the real one. The monster opened its spell book and cast a demonic curse. Dark energy coiled around her and her companions, locking their bodies in place. They cried out in pain. She tried to move but couldn't. In an instant, Herkin cut through the vines and dispelled the curse. "How boring," he said, glancing up. "Your curse rank is too low." "My turn," the evil eye roared. Herkin activated his war watch, transforming into a stronger form. "Here I come." He rushed forward. Vines shot toward him, but he sliced through them without slowing. The monster chanted again. As Herkin advanced, it suddenly bound his leg. Petrification magic. A hidden circle had been placed in his path. Above, the evil eye formed a massive sphere of condensed energy. Herkin smirked. If it wanted to trap him and fire from above, he would answer the same way. He hurled his sword forward. The two attacks collided midair. The monster spell shattered under the force, and Herkin's strike pierced through, slamming into the evil eye. A massive explosion engulfed the altar. From below, the yellow-haired girl stared in disbelief as the pillar collapsed. The evil eye was defeated. The quest for subjugating the altar's master was complete. Amid the fading smoke, Herkin stood calmly, satisfied. Herkin examined his armor. The skeleton set performed better than expected, recreating nearly 70% of his pre-regression movements. With all parts equipped, occupation-related stats increased by 132, all stats by 150, and skill cooldown and mana consumption were reduced by 10%. It responded instantly, like a machine tuned to his instincts. With this, the main quest no longer felt threatening. He moved lightly, satisfied. Suddenly, the black-haired boy rushed over and jumped at him, followed by two teammates. They hugged him tightly, saying they thought he was going to die when the petrification magic hit. They praised the way he dodged and finished the evil eye, saying it felt like watching a movie, and asked him to train them again. Irritated, Herkin shoved them away and told them to get off. Elsewhere, a white-haired man watched the live stream of the battle. "Haho Mask defeated Evil Eye," he said. He addressed Singlet, asking what he thought. Singlet began to apologize, but the man cut him off, reminding him that interfering with the main quest had priority over Haho Mask. He questioned why he should keep a tool that disobeyed orders and told him to reflect. Singlet pleaded for another chance, but the man warned him not to defy him again and ordered obedience. Singlet bowed and accepted the command before leaving. Mikkel asked what they should do about Haho Mask. The white-haired man ordered increased surveillance. Haho Mask was progressing too quickly, and his moves were too precise, almost as if he already knew the main quest scenarios. Mikkel said that was impossible. The man explained that Warlord's main quest was generated in real time by the AI, MIA, based on player activity. Even so, they would investigate. They needed to find out what methods Haho Mask was using. Herkin entered a ruin-like structure with his skeletons. Dust filled the air, making him cough. He muttered that whoever designed a place like this had poor taste. A notification appeared. He obtained the titles Catacomb Visitor and He Who Awakens. He confirmed he was at the right place, the catacombs. Observing the area quietly, he signaled his skeletons to move. It was time to finish the final part of Chapter 2 of the main quest. A moment earlier, Sarabo had handed him a curse protection amulet, allowing safe travel through the cursed territory. Sarabo explained that although Evil Eye was defeated, traces of the corrupt one likely remained. Herkin was to investigate Haben Castle, find evidence related to the corrupt one, and return. The reward would be Sarabo's trust. Herkin accepted and left, ignoring the main entrance. The real evidence, he knew, was in the castle's outskirts basement, the catacombs. If he cleared it quickly, he would finish Chapter 2 before anyone else. Moving through the underground paths, his skeletons fought skeleton wolves efficiently. He encouraged them as they advanced, cutting down wave after wave. Experience points accumulated steadily. Satisfied with their performance, he urged them to move faster. At this pace, the catacombs would be cleared in no time. 30 minutes later, however, the winding paths began to confuse him. He paused, wondering if they had already passed the same corridor before. 1 hour later, Herkin kept running through the catacombs with his skeletons, convinced he was on the right path. 3 hours later, 8 dead end blocked him. He struck the wall repeatedly, frustrated that the route wasn't appearing. Time was slipping away, and other guilds would eventually catch up. He regretted not bringing a mage for detection magic, but he refused to share this opportunity. One of his skeletons tapped his shoulder. They had laid down their equipment and pointed at it. Irritated, he ordered them to pick it up and calmed himself. Anger wouldn't solve the maze. A notification appeared. He had obtained a new title, and his stamina increased. Confused at first, he soon understood and laughed. He advanced deeper and entered a large chamber. A massive skeleton warrior stood ahead and demanded to know who disturbed its rest. Before it could finish speaking, Herkin punched it and told it to be quiet. The skeleton tried to protest, claiming it had once been a commander, but Herkin kept striking it, venting his frustration over the maze. The skeleton roared and cast a spell, summoning an army of skeletons around them. It boasted about its forces. Herkin glanced at the army without concern. Disappointed, he summoned his own skeletons using a skull fragment and told them to rush forward. His skeleton army charged toward the enemy forces as the two sides collided. The giant skeleton watched in shock as the two armies clashed. Its forces were pushed back immediately. Herkin said it was obvious. His skeletons copied his movements, carrying the combat sense of a former ranker. An army built only on numbers could not compare. The giant skeleton grew furious, but before it could react, Herkin pointed out its footing. Skeletons were already climbing over its body. It tried to command its army, but they no longer responded. Panic set in as more of Herkin's summons overwhelmed it. Herkin said its army was simply too weak. The giant skeleton shook them off and charged, declaring it would finish things itself. But before it could strike, Herkin's skeletons cut it apart. Its head rolled to Herkin's feet. He looked down and calmly praised his summons. They bowed. Later, the footage of the battle spread online, drawing massive attention and reactions. Many were shocked by the scale of his summons and questioned the balance of necromancers. Matador Shev watched the video and paused it. His companion noted that with control like that, Herkin did not need a guild. Shev said it was even better than a guild. Unlike groups, he had no risk of casualties. He explained how Herkin manipulated the enemy's aggro, forcing them into disadvantageous positions within seconds. Smiling, he said Haho Mask would become a major figure. His companion reminded him that Herkin was still a competitor. Shev replied that as a guild master, yes, but personally, the rise of a strong rival was exciting. Meanwhile, Chai Silian also watched the video. She frowned, noticing he was not wearing the skeleton armor she sent. She wondered if he realized it came from her and criticized Shev for handling things carelessly. Her phone rang. After ignoring one call, she answered the next. Hatch urgently told her something major had just happened. Silian answered the call, warning Hatch to make it worth her time. Hatch steadied himself and reported that a messenger from Hydra had arrived, asking for cooperation on the main quest. She immediately refused, suspecting their intentions after Chapter 1. Hatch added that Hydra claimed to know the final strategy for clearing Chapter 2 and had already contacted other top 30 guilds. Silian was shocked. The final chapter was not even revealed yet, so how could they know? After a brief pause, she agreed to meet them. At Hydra's in-game hideout, members gathered as confirmation arrived that the Thunder Queen would attend. Some mocked her attitude, while others spoke of repaying the humiliation of losing the previous chapter. An orange-haired member thanked a man in white and green armor for providing the information that gave them this opportunity. The man replied that choosing Hydra had been the right move and suggested they watch their revenge unfold. Elsewhere, Herkin presented a stone emitting dark energy to Sarabo. Sarabo reacted immediately, covering it and warning him never to reveal it to anyone. When Herkin asked what it was, Sarabo explained that the crest belonged to the third prince of the Hyben Kingdom, Bayan Din of Northland, a respected figure who supported the Raiders Association. Herkin questioned why such a crest would be found in the catacombs. Sarabo admitted he did not know, but if the crest was there, the prince was likely connected to the corruption. Herkin was shocked, but inwardly relieved. The main scenario had not changed. Despite recent deviations, the core remained the same. He resolved to take the final chapter and secure his position. Sarabo then instructed him to go to Ahimbri. Herkin, still lost in thought, asked who that was. Sarabo clarified it was his master, Grand Magi Ahimbri, also part of the Secret Order, and that his opinion would be important. A quest window appeared, directing him to visit Ahimbri. Herkin stared at it, irritation rising. He did not want to meet him. Herkin arrived at Ahimbri's place and handed over the stone. Ahimbri examined it calmly and said he had expected this, though he hoped it was not true. Herkin noticed the lack of surprise and pointed out that Sarabo had reacted very differently. Ahimbri explained that if the prince truly was behind the corruption, the situation would become dangerous. Not only was the power of corruption strong, but opposing him could mean making an enemy of the entire kingdom. Herkin replied that he would just have to become stronger. Ahimbri then presented a skill book. A notification appeared. Skill book, life vessel. Herkin immediately recognized its value. An ultra-rare necromancer skill, not even available on the market. He reached out to take it, but Ahimbri pulled it back. He said something this valuable would not be given for free. Herkin sighed and asked what he needed to do. Ahimbri named the price. 10 million gold. Herkin froze. That was nearly all his savings. He protested, calling it absurd, but Ahimbri insisted it was worth even more elsewhere. Herkin tried to walk away, saying he would not buy it. Ahimbri let him go, then began describing the skill, how it could revive him even with a single drop of blood, how it could turn battles completely in his favor, and how it would lead to power, fame, and dominance. Herkin stopped. After a moment, he turned back. Soon after, he handed over a pouch of gold. Ahimbri accepted it with a satisfied smile. Outside, Herkin dropped to his knees, shouting about losing all his savings. Still, he convinced himself it was necessary. To reach the final chapter, he would have needed it eventually anyway. Still sweating and on the verge of tears, Herkin tried to convince himself it was an investment. If he kept grinding nonstop, he could earn the 10 million gold back. A call interrupted him. He answered reluctantly. It was Pitbull Singh. Singh asked for help hunting a black tree. Herkin refused at first, but when Singh mentioned the reward, a purification circlet that could sell for any price, his attitude changed immediately. He agreed. At the beach, Herkin found Singh surrounded by elf girls enjoying themselves. Irritated, he walked up and punched him, demanding an explanation. Singh calmly said he was just relaxing and began explaining the situation. Earlier, while attempting to hunt the black tree, Singh was interrupted by a group from the Big Smile Guild. They declared the forest as their territory and warned him off. When Singh protested, they threatened to burn down the forest and destroy nearby elven villages if he resisted. Realizing a top 30 guild could actually follow through, Singh retreated. Later, even after formally requesting permission, they refused again, clearly enjoying the situation. That was why he called Herkin, hoping his reputation might help. Herkin laughed. He already found Big Smile irritating, but now he had a reason. He said he would help thoroughly. Back in the forest, the Big Smile Guild leader complained about being bored and joked about tormenting Singh. As they talked, a voice agreed with them. Herkin suddenly appeared and punched the leader, sending him crashing to the ground. Before the others could react, Herkin told them their Hyung was in a bad mood and gave them 10 seconds to hand over everything they had. As Herkin finished wiping out the Big Smile Guild members, Singh approached and asked if he was all right. Herkin looked confused and said he was completely fine. Singh clarified he was not asking about his condition, but about the consequences. Herkin had not only provoked Big Smile, he had also stolen their war watches. They would definitely come for revenge. Herkin stood up and said that made things better. More enemies meant more war watches. Singh called him insane and warned him again as they left, but Herkin brushed it off. Among the fallen guild members, one barely conscious player used his war watch to report Haho Mask's presence in the forest. Soon after, a massive explosion echoed. Herkin looked at it and said it was finally over. A notification confirmed the black tree had been defeated. Experience and gold were awarded. Singh commented on how fast it was. Herkin replied it was not that strong and immediately asked for the promised reward. Elf girls rushed in, ignoring Herkin and praising Singh for defeating the black tree. Irritated, Herkin pointed out that he fought too. One of them snapped at him and threw the purification circlet his way, telling him to take it and leave. A notification confirmed the item's value. Herkin instantly changed his tone, cheerfully thanking Singh. Singh remarked that he was easy to read. Herkin picked up the circlet and considered whether to sell it. Singh approached again, thanking him sincerely and extending his hand. Herkin paused, looked at him, then smirked. He started to take the handshake but pulled back, telling him that if he was really grateful, he should give him more money. With that, he turned and left. One of the elf girls remarked that Herkin and Singh seemed to have made up. Singh, still irritated, denied it but admitted he was relieved. As Herkin walked through the forest, a cool breeze passed by. He felt satisfied, thinking about the war watches and the purification circlet. For the time being, money wouldn't be a concern. A call from Singh came in. Herkin picked up, expecting another request, but Singh urgently told him not to come. Another voice cut in, threatening him to call Herkin if he wanted to live. Herkin realized something was wrong. A man greeted him and told him to come if he wanted to save his friend. Herkin immediately ran towards Singh's location. Meanwhile, Singh was being beaten. He was struck and kicked, thrown to the ground, while the elf girls are captured nearby. Reinforcements from Big Smile had arrived, led by a man seated on a golden chair. The leader mocked Singh for taking the beating to protect Herkin. Singh, barely conscious, said it was his responsibility and asked them not to harm Herkin. The leader grew irritated and kicked him again, pressing his face into the ground. As another blow was about to land, Herkin suddenly appeared and leapt in with a sword strike. The leader flinched, but Singh blocked the attack himself. Herkin landed, confused. Singh told him to leave, saying he could handle it. The guild leader laughed, mocking Herkin. Recognizing him as Apollo, now an officer of Big Smile, Herkin's irritation grew. Herkin asked what was going on. Apollo casually explained that Singh was taking the punishment meant for Herkin, insisting it was his own decision after asking for help. Apollo grabbed Singh and continued provoking Herkin, offering to release Singh if Herkin took his place. Herkin's anger rose further. Apollo declared himself someone born with everything, money, power, and fame, and said everyone once feared him. Then he recalled the moment everything changed when Herkin's video of defeating Big Smile spread online. Watching it and reading the comments, Apollo had grown furious as people laughed at him. He swore to repay that humiliation. Back in the present, Apollo pointed at Herkin and said that was why he set this up. Herkin remained calm and asked if this was why he had taken a hostage. Apollo stepped on Singh and said Herkin's arrogance forced him to exploit a weakness. He noted how quickly Herkin came running after Singh's call, then kicked Singh again, saying that if not, he had simply found a new toy. The guild members laughed. Despite his anger, Herkin stayed still and thought it through. The rational choice was to leave. They were not close enough for him to risk himself, and stepping in would only make Singh more valuable as a hostage. Singh had chosen this himself. As he hesitated, a memory surfaced, someone accusing him of being no different, someone who would run the moment things turned against him. Apollo, watching him remain still, assumed he was hesitating. Another guild member recorded everything, confident that no matter what choice Herkin made, the outcome would ruin him. At that moment, Herkin moved. He swung his sword and cut down a nearby guild member instantly. Everyone froze in shock as he stepped forward and said he had thought it over. There was no reason to listen to them. He could just eliminate them all. Apollo's expression changed. He warned that if Herkin did that, Big Smile would mark him completely, and assassins would hunt him every time he logged in. With a hardened expression, Herkin asked Apollo why he pushed himself so relentlessly, cutting sleep, saving every coin, and training as if his life depended on it. Apollo ignored him and ordered his men to attack. They rushed in, striking Herkin one after another, but their attacks barely did any damage. He kept walking forward through the blows. Then he summoned his skeletons, and they began cutting down the soldiers. Herkin moved through the battlefield without slowing and said it was so he would never have to bow to people like them. Within moments, all the guild members were wiped out. Apollo panicked, unable to understand why Herkin would go this far. He tried to calm things down, but before he could finish, Herkin punched him. Herkin grabbed Apollo by the neck and told him to do whatever he wanted about making him a target, but to be ready for the consequences. He continued beating him, saying he would destroy everything Apollo had. As Apollo realized how far Herkin was willing to go, Singh freed the captured elf girls. They rushed to him, worried about his condition, but he said he was fine. Singh then looked at Herkin, who was catching his breath after the fight, and asked if he was all right. Herkin stood up and said there was no reason he wouldn't be. Singh warned him that this would cause trouble. The top guilds were already wary of him, and now he had given them a reason to act openly. He apologized, saying it happened because of him. Herkin dismissed it, saying he just refused to bow and that he hadn't stepped in to save Singh. After a moment, Singh handed him a pouch filled with gold, saying it was his entire fortune and that he should pay if he was grateful. Herkin paused, then smirked and said it wasn't nearly enough. The scene shifted. A gray-haired man slammed his fist down, furious that Apollo had gone too far. A subordinate suggested placing a bounty on Herkin, but the man shut it down, ordering everything to be covered up. He explained that Herkin already had the backing of powerful guilds, and they were in no position to start another conflict. Then he added that it wasn't necessary anyway. According to intelligence from Hydra, Haho Mask would be eliminated in the next main quest.